team-first approach is the number one thing that we're going to talk about. We talked about it all off-season, but, removing the word I from our verbiage as much as possible and thinking about the team, how we can make the team better, players, coaches, administrators, and just, trying to keep the I out of the building as much as possible.
I just really like the character of the guys in the locker room. I think it's high-quality guys, high-quality people. It would seem that our personnel staff has really emphasized the caliber of the person in the locker room, and that's the sense I get with the guys I'm with, and just how on the details they are, how much football matters to them, the questions they ask. And that's been a real shot in the arm for me as an older player to kind of see a lot of young guys who are acting like veterans.
It's Unnecessary Roughness. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right. Here's your boy Q.
And here we go, Raider Nation. We come into the sounds of head coach Clint Kubiak talking about removing the I from the verbiage. It is a we type of concept going on with the Raiders. That team, that locker room, that culture, everything is trying to be created. It's not about I. It's about team, and you hear Kirk Cousins double down on that, talking about the good caliber people, the good character people, guys that love football, characteristics that we've been talking about all offseason long. And I think a lot of times when people hear, oh, they got good character guys, they think, oh, these are really nice guys, and they're pushovers, and they're not tough dudes, and they're not really good football players because, well, they're just really good guys. That's not what they're talking about when they're talking about characteristics. Yeah, they want good dudes, right? Guys that are just genuinely good people, but they want guys that are good football players, guys that care about football, guys that are able to, hold themselves accountable, guys that are self-motivators, guys that are willing to be a part of the team. 111, right? On whoever you are, you're 111. And that's all it is, and that's what they're looking for, and that's how they're trying to build this team and this culture in the direction of John Spytek and Clint Kubiak and everyone else that's involved in the process. That's what they've been working on, and Clint Kubiak said that on yesterday, and it was reiterated again today, and we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Again, it's Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Big show lined up for you this afternoon, as we always do. Really excited to be out there at training camp for day one of practice. And, just looking forward to the rest of the camp, looking forward to the rest of the preseason games, and see how it started today and where it ends when training camp is over. And then, of course, they're getting ready for week one, hosting the Miami Dolphins at Allegiant Stadium. So we've got some different directions that we're going to go on today's show, and a few different guests that we have as well, including Jabari Young from Forbes. He's going to join us at 2:30. Had a really good sit-down with the president of the Raiders, Sandra Douglas Morgan, from lawyer to NFL team president, how Sandra Douglas Morgan operates the Raiders. Really good, lengthy sit-down, one-on-one with Sandra Douglas Morgan. And as soon as I saw it and absorbed it and, listened to it and saw it, I just realized that we had to get him on to talk about it. And, I've been someone who's admired Sandra Douglas Morgan since she become the president of the Raiders, and we've had plenty of good conversations on the radio, in person, whatever the case may be. Saw her today at Raiders training camp as well, as long as Mark Davis was there and many others there to check out day one. But I have a lot of respect for the Prez, as I like to call her, and so we'll talk to Jabari Young about his conversation that he had as he sat down at the Raiders facility with the president, Sandra Douglas Morgan. That'll come up at 2:30. At 3 o'clock, Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network, Number Game on YouTube. She'll join us. We'll just scatter shoot all things NFL. All 32 teams are back in action. Training camps are open. Some teams are already getting hit with the injury bug, and I hate that. Looking at the Carolina Panthers, they've been hit, I think, 3 days in a row with the injury bug. And it's just unfortunate, but it's the nature of the beast when it comes to football. You know that it's going to happen, and it's a battle of hopefully, your team does not get hit with that injury bug, and hopefully they can stay as healthy as possible. And, of course, the Raiders have dealt with that in the past, and they had all of their guys participating today. As you had the roster. They printed out fresh new rosters when we arrived at the facility today, and as I was standing there watching, they were going through the stretching, and they were going through individual drills, had my little pen out, and check, 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 all 90 guys. All 90 guys there in attendance, out there putting in their work, including Nakobe Dean, who we hadn't seen at OTAs. We hadn't seen at mandatory minicamp. He was out there, so that was encouraging. Jamad McCoy, the fourth-round pick out of Tennessee, the first-round talent, but dropped to the fourth round. He was out there as well. Do I expect to see McCoy out there every single day? No, because they're going to work him along, and they have a plan for him, as Clint Kubiak has let us know multiple times. So, we'll continue to do that. That's one of the exercises that we make sure we do every single day, just see who's in attendance, who's not. Is there an injury? Is it for some other reason? Whatever the case may be. Just, again, trying to do the best we can to monitor the team and see how they continue to grow, see how each and every day goes when it comes to training camp. But Cynthia Frelund will join us talking all things NFL, also talk about some guys that are in contract situations right now. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man, they've been hit multiple days in a row, haven't they? Man, all of a sudden they get hit with the Vita Vea trade request. Then Baker Mayfield doesn't get a contract extension before training camp opens up, so he says, all right, no problem. I'll just go ahead and play the year out, and I'll be a free agent at the end of the year, knowing that there's a possibility he gets franchise tagged. Okay, well, that's a situation they got to deal with. And then, so Vita Vea doesn't get hit with a $50,000 a day fine. All of a sudden today at practice, he tweaks something in his back, and so now he's not practicing. And we've all been there, done that. We all know what that's like when all of a sudden a guy comes up with an injury, and I say injury in air quotes, so he doesn't have to participate or he doesn't have to practice. And it's one of those that you can't really say, oh, he's not injured or he doesn't have some kind of tweak or some kind of pull or some kind of strain. You just have to kind of roll with it. And so that's the situation that they're dealing with in Tampa Bay. So for a team that normally flies under the radar, we normally really don't ever talk about Tampa Bay. Seems like they've been in the news quite a bit. So Cynthia Frelund will join us at 3 o'clock. We'll talk all things NFL. Then 4 o'clock, our teammate Brandy Flores from the Las Vegas Sports Network. She was also out there with us today at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. She sat down next to the morning tailgate while GM John Spytek sat down and talked with them. So she was able to observe that conversation. Obviously checked out all the practice, talked to all the players and coaches following practice as well. So she was all over it. So we'll get her thoughts on her observations on what she saw from day one of practice. So Brandy Flores will join us coming up at 4 o'clock. We'll hear from you throughout the course of the show as well. 702-365-9200. Jabari Young at 2:30, Cynthia Frelund at 3, Brandy Flores at 4 o'clock. Ari, real quick, do you have the word of the day for the summer of fun?
I sure do. It is blue, B-L-U-E. Blue.
Can't say that we didn't see that yesterday. Yeah, can't say we didn't see that one coming yesterday.
Secret.
And yeah, exactly. So there you go. The trip is the Grand Canyon in Sedona. Of course, you can take the cash if you want to do that. The cash is $3,000. Take the trip, take the cash. That's being brought to you by Terribles. All you got to do is text BLUE, the color blue, B-L-U-E, to 702-365-9200. You'll have till 5 o'clock to go ahead and do that and get in to win. Before we get into the opening drive, we do got to hear from our guy E-Rob. Yesterday was important. Practice tomorrow is going to be important, but today was important. And why is that?
Because every day matters. The older you get, the more you start appreciating day in and day out. Because you know I can't get that time back. I'm in the business of saying, not if I would have did this or if I would have did that. I'm in the business of now.
I'm in the business of now as well. So right now, let's go ahead and jump into the opening drive.
The opening drive of Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920 AM is brought to you by Paul Patta Law. It's not about the injury, it's about the recovery.
So a couple different directions I wanted to go here in the opening drive on Unnecessary Roughness, RaiderNation Radio 920, because I do want to give you my quick thoughts on what I saw in day one of practice. I mean, that's not responsible of me if I don't go ahead and break down what I saw in a practice setting, but I also want to bring a topic to the table each and every day like I always do. So before I get into my observations and what stood out to me the most, my top takeaways from day one of practice, I do want you to hear from GM John Spytek. I said earlier that he sat down with the morning tailgate. Matter of fact, he might as well have been the guy that opened up the show. He literally sat down at 7 a.m. when the show got started. Vince Sapienza was there at the facility. Clay Baker was there in the studio, and Vinny also in studio. So he was able to sit down with them. If you missed the interview, you can check it out on our YouTube page, RaiderNation Radio 920 AM, the YouTube page. Brandy Flores, as mentioned, she was able to capture the whole thing. Really good stuff. You definitely want to go check that out. But I want you to hear from him, and it kind of goes with the theme of what we heard on the way in from Clint Kubiak when it talks about removing the I from the verbiage, and it's more about we. This is what Vince Sapienza, he had asked him about that removing the verbiage and what it meant for this team moving forward.
Well, I think the great teams that I've been a part of and the great teams that Clint's been a part of and anybody that's been a part of a great team, that's the message. It's we. It's not, this isn't tennis, this isn't golf. You've got to sacrifice a lot in this sport. for the man next to you and the people around you. And I think that, that's really easy for Clint and myself, is because it's how we're wired. And we're going to keep hammering that message home. And, the people that we've brought into this organization, that's the way they operate. And that was intentional. And, getting to know Clint through the past 6 months now, whatever it's been, it feels like it's been 2 years and 2 days at the same time.
In a good way.
In a great way. Well, that's the football world, really. It just rolls on. We're going to wake up here in 2 weeks and we'll be playing a football game against the Cardinals. But we've just had a great rapport and a lot of great conversations. And, we're wired the same way with how we see the game and the way that we want to approach it. But we're certainly open to challenging each other and open-minded enough to accept those challenges and think different ways, too.
So that really stood out to me. I was sitting in the media room there at the facility listening to the interview, and that just stood out to me in a major way, and I was glad that Vince asked that question about removing the I from the verbiage, and you hear what John Spytek had to say. And I really do believe that mentality, even though it should be really, you shouldn't have to speak on it, right? Football we know is the ultimate team sport. So you shouldn't have to remove the I and say that it's all about we're doing this and making this effort. That should kind of be the obvious, but it's not. And it wasn't last year. How much I did we see last year from coaches and players? It wasn't exclusive to one, right? There was plenty of different, and we talk about it all the time on the show. How many different agendas did we witness last year? From the head coach to the OC to the DC to players to, there was so many different directions. It even felt like at times the GM and the head coach weren't even on the same page, right? Well, what are we saying? I always talk about going on vacation and seeing everyone rowing in the same direction and right on time and in sync with each other, and that's how it's got to be. When you hear from John Spytek himself as a guest on the Morning Tailgate this morning here on RaiderNation Radio 920, that they are lockstep with each other, right? They are the we. They're putting together and they're all on the same page. So I ask you, how much do you believe that this team, with what they're trying to build, Clint Kubiak, John Spytek and company, how much will this team benefit from buying into the we and not the I, making it all about us and not me, making it about the whole team process and trying to get on the same page so they can have one goal in mind, which is turning this thing into a winner. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight, but they all have to buy into, we understand the process and we're going to be willing to take the steps to get there. And the steps started today. And the steps start today when you see Max Crosby out there, right? Day one of training camp, even though he reported last week with the rookies. You tell me that if Max wanted to make it about him, he could have said, yeah, I'm not quite ready to go. I'm not quite ready. I'll be ready midway through training camp or whatever, right? I don't think anybody would have questioned him because we all know who he is and we all know what he's going to bring to the table. But instead, it was important for him not only to be out there today, but he was out there last week with the rookies, and he spoke with us, after practice and said, it's funny, it feels like a rookie all over again. I'm over at the M Resort, I'm at the hotel, and, I'm the only guy out there as a veteran. I'm out there with all the rookies. But that's what he made sure that was important for him. And his goal was to get ready and be fully cleared for the first day of training camp, official first day of training camp, and he was. Went in there yesterday, went in there and went through the physicals, and boom, he was good. Conditioning test, boom, good. And everybody went through the conditioning test, was good. How many times have we seen players go off for the summer, the 5 weeks for the summer, whatever the case is, and then all of a sudden get out of shape, get a little fat and happy, and come back and they don't get to practice the first couple of days because they're still trying to pass their physical. So I want to throw that out there to you. You can think about it for a minute. 702-365-9200. I think this is huge if these players will all buy into the we thoughts. And again, it goes back to what we heard in the beginning from Kirk Cousins talking about the good character people, the good caliber players. He even said the rookies that are acting like veterans because they understand what it is. So, again, when we go back to conversations of, well, do you think the Raiders should sign this player? I don't think they really fit the kind of player that they want. That's because they're not looking for a bunch of I's. They're looking for a bunch of we's. So it's not, they're looking for a bunch of choir boys. They're looking for a bunch of this, that, and the third. No, they're looking for dudes to give a damn and give a damn about the overall product, not just their overall success. Yes, everyone wants to be successful individually, sure. But as John Spytek said, it's not golf, it's not tennis, it's football, which is the ultimate team sport. You do not win unless you have your 11 guys on each side of the ball on the same page. You just don't. One guy, let one corner go out and do something on his own. Let him go, freelance and decide, I'm going to do my own thing because, well, I'm a great corner and I can go make this play. And then all of a sudden he leaves his teammates high and dry. That's what they're trying not to have. They're not trying to have guys that are trying to play hero ball. They're trying to have guys that are going out there, understanding where they're supposed to be, understand how many steps it takes to the left, how many steps it takes to the right. One of my big takeaways from practice today was having a conversation with Kirk Morrison. And even when he joins the show, each and every Monday at 2:30, or as yesterday he joined the show at 3 o'clock. But whenever he joins the show, we always learn a lot, right? I just ask a question, I get out the way, and I let him teach. Well, he was sitting there talking to me and Brandy Flores after practice as we were waiting for players to get to the podium, and he said today was a day about landmarks. And, of course, I don't know what he's talking about when he says that, but I'm willing to listen. So he said, at a certain point in my career, when I'm in practice and I know what the coverage call is, I'm lined up, I'm in my stance, I know I take 3 steps to the left, that's where I'm supposed to be. Right? And so these players are out here today because it wasn't the most, crisp practice. It wasn't hit the ground going 100 miles an hour. It was, seeing how much these guys retained from OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Right? It seemed like there was some thinking. Fernando was doing some thinking out there. A couple balls behind, wide receivers. It was a little rusty. They were knocking off the rust. But like Kirk pointed out to me, it's more about landmarks today. All right, look, I know what this route is. I know where I have to be because the ball's going to get to that landmark. I got to get there. So today was about, and he used Jack Besh for an example. Jack Besh might take, 3-4 left steps to get to a certain spot. Dante Thornton might only take 3 because he's, obviously bigger. So they're trying to get to a certain spot in this route. There's certain landmarks on the field. So today was about these players seeing what it takes for them to get there, and these quarterbacks to see what it takes. What does it take for Malik Benson to get to, the sideline on this route? How do I have to hit Ashton Jeanty? What's it going to take for Ashton Jeanty to get to his spot? So that was, and it was really enlightening to hear that, and he took it a step further, and I thought it was really cool, and I don't lock in on golf. I'll be lying to you if I said I do, but I locked in on Tiger, right? I was a Tiger guy, and after Tiger, then it was kind of like I'll watch it, and I'll just hit or miss at times. If it's on, I'll check it out, but it's not like appointment watching. But, he was talking about looking through the site to see how far the pin is, right? Trying to get the down the distance, right? And you're not allowed to do that in the tournaments. You're not allowed to use those kind of equipments. But what they'll do is they'll go out to like a spot in the course, like a tree. Again, landmark. And then they'll walk it off. They'll put in their little notes. Okay, I'm at this tree, which is about whatever distance it is from where they tee off. And then they'll walk off the rest of the distance. Okay, it's 160 away. I got it. What am I going to do to hit, what club do I need to hit 106, 108, 110? Again, just using landmarks. And so I thought it was pretty cool to be able to talk about that, bring golf into football, but I understood it when he said it, about the fact that you have to understand what it's going to take for you to get to that spot, and especially in this offense in particular that Clint Kubiak runs, which we know comes from the Shanahan, the McVay, all that tree, where they're able to just have the timing down. Like Kirk Cousins is going to snap the ball, he's going to hit that back foot, and that ball's going to come out. It's going to be up to Besh, Thornton, Benson, Tucker, Naylor to be where they're supposed to be. Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, these guys have to be where they're supposed to be. And what is it going to take for them to get there? And that's what they were really doing today. It wasn't a whole lot of, like I said, just like they were hitting the ground and they were flying around 100 miles an hour. They weren't doing that. Again, it was knocking off a little bit of the rust. It was a shorter practice. I expect a longer practice tomorrow. But it was just kind of easing back into it. I described it after the practice, and when I went back to the media room and got my stuff and I was about to leave, I said, all right, now, everyone, you got your assignments. You know what you got to go get your school supplies, right? They gave you the list of school supplies. Now go get them. That's what it kind of felt like today. It was one of those, you're at the first day of class, you're getting introduced to your teachers and everyone that your classmates, and this is what the curriculum's going to be, and this is what you're going to need to go ahead and succeed. That's kind of how I looked at it today. But I thought it was a good day of practice, very football-oriented, no wasted time, no wasted steps, no wasted anything. It was a good first day as far as I'm concerned. 702-365-9200. I do want to hear from you. We've got Jabari Young from Forbes coming up at 2:30 to talk all things Sandra Douglas Morgan. But how much do you believe this team will benefit from buying into the we and not the I? Let's go ahead and start out with our guy, Just Win Will. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's going on, Q? What up, Ari? Thanks for putting me on the show with you and getting my Ricky Henderson on here. So, wow. Right? I better
There's nothing wrong with that. That's always greatness when you get your Ricky Henderson on.
That is always greatness, right? So I'm going to say it's going to be paramount because I'm going to tie it to us as the nation. Like we call it, we're the nation. We're Raider Nation because players, coaches, all the staff members, they come and go, but the shield is always here. So when you remove that I, then you buy in like how wherever we are, if you see somebody with a Raiders shield, you give them the nod, you yell Raiders, right? Like that's a we thing, you know? So if the team can be like that, that's great because, you know, then it's almost like the names on the back don't even matter. It's just we're all rowing in the boat for the shield. So that's great on that. And then I got a question for you, Q. One, did you enjoy the Marlon Wayne show?
I did.
How was that?
I did. It was fantastic. Me, the family, everyone, we had a great time, man. Sat front row.
Nice. And then did you get MD the fade? When he has to be a Raiders fan.
No, I didn't get him a fade yet. I saw him today, but he was perched up pretty high there at practice. So when I see him and he walks by me, I'll tell him that Marlon was saying that he needs to get a fade.
Wayne,
exactly.
Yeah. If we can, as many Steelers fans as we can convert, that'd be great.
Right.
That's great for us.
He'll get a kick out of that.
and then the last one I want to leave you on with is okay. So Captain Kirk said some stuff about when you get the information, in May or whatever, and then you go on break, this is the test of what you've, retained, right? Yep. And then they'll only give you more based on that. Mm-hmm. How will he be able to tell, and how will you, Q, be able to tell, can you see that? Is there a benchmark? Is that visible, or is that just something that, like you guys have been saying, it'll just reveal itself? Or is there something that, Captain Kirk can see as a former player, like, okay, yeah, that guy actually is picking this up, or no, this guy is actually not picking this up, or, in that regard. And that's across the board for all the players in the battles. But then, me, I couldn't leave you without talking about the linebackers. I want to know, are we going to run with maybe more safeties and corners than linebackers and really just have maybe two linebackers in namesake and more DBs on the field? Is that something that we're doing? Is that a Robbie Leonard thing? I don't know if that makes sense, but if you could ask or find that out, I'll be listening. Have a great rest of your show, fellas. Thanks again, Ari. Thank you, Q, as always. I appreciate everything you guys do. Much love to you guys. Much love to the nation. I'm out. Have a great day.
Hey, you do the same. Just Win Will. Really good call. And, yeah, I mean, I believe that it will start – it's funny. It will start to reveal itself who's retaining and who's not based off where they're running. Today you saw Malik Benson run with the ones. You saw Besh run with the ones. You saw Thornton. But then you saw a lot of mixing and matching. I think these guys are really trying to see who fits where, right? There's nobody that's a definitive, okay, that's where this guy's going to play. Like there was times where Hezekiah Masses was running for the first-team defense, right? And Jermon McCoy is running with the second-team defense. But it's going to fluctuate. It's not just this is how it is. It's set in stone, and we're going to roll. Fernando Mendoza ran with the threes throughout the OTAs and mandatory minicamp. He was with the twos today, right? I mean, so you'll see the retention and how much more they're putting on the plate by where these guys are on the pecking order, right? And the more and more you see, but again, it's only day one, so you're not going to see it all right now. This is just the early taste test, almost like dipping their toes into the water and testing the temperature at this stage of the game. Jabari Young's coming up in a hot minute. Let's go out to Phoenix real quick. Talk to our guy, Raider John. Raider John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, buddy. I know you're probably pressing up against the clock, so I'll be quick. Listen, this whole team business, that has some real bite to it. Let me tell you what. You know, you look about the Raiders and the greatness of the past. L. Davis, you know what he used to do? He used to go out and pick players that had been rejected from other teams. And he said, come to our team. Come to our team. You don't have to worry about all that other bull crap that you put up with. And that's how he made the Raiders great, because it was a team. And, you know, later on in his life, he got kind of carried away a little bit because he thought maybe John Gruden was kind of taking the spotlight away from the team. He never deviated from that philosophy, and that is what the Raiders were great at. But guess what? It's not easy to do. It's not, as you just said at the very beginning, this whole thing has to be, you have to breed it first. You have to have a cohesion of coaches that are together, of the mindset. And I know you can look back and say, you know, Pete Carroll and all the guys before, you know what I was excited about? Young brains, offensive guys coming in, bringing somebody together, saying, we're going to put this together. And I think that's the change, and I think that's the excitement that the Raider Nation might be, in store for. I know it's all in the proofs in the pudding, but I believe that if you combine it all, that's where we're headed. Thank you, and have a good day.
All right, thanks so much, Raider John. Really good call. Appreciate that. All right, you could probably make a promo out of that call. Really good stuff right there from Raider John, giving us a little bit of history as well when it comes to the late, great Al Davis. Really good stuff. Just when Will, appreciate you. Raider John, appreciate you. Got a bunch of texts as well we'll get to. How much do you believe this team will benefit from buying into the we and not I? Coming up next, Jabari Young. He's from Forbes. He sat down with the president, Sandra Douglas Morgan. We'll talk about that discussion next here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
That was the opening drive of Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM. Brought to you by Paul Padala. It's not about the injury, it's about the recovery.
I still pinch myself.
Really?
Yes. It is a business just like any other business, right? But this is just on such a bigger stage, right? It's exciting, challenging, fast-paced. You have to be able to adapt to changing circumstances, whether it be, on-field performance, an issue, again, when you're hosting 65,000 people, and then you have, millions and millions of fans all over and their expectations and information. Inaccurate information is something that we're all challenging, right? So all of that is a due challenge every day, and every day for me is different. But that's what makes me love this position so much.
You're listening to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
That's the Prez right there, as I like to call her, Sandra Douglas Morgan, talking to Jabari Young about, just what she loves about the position that she's in as the president of the Raiders, and she's been in this position now for a while. We've talked a lot about Sandra Douglas Morgan on this show. I have a lot of respect for her, and I have a lot of respect for our next guest that sat down with her at the facility and had a really good one-on-one. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on Raider Nation Radio 920. We bring in Jabari Young from Forbes. And Jabari, thanks so much for your time. Really do appreciate you. And off top, checking out your work from lawyer to NFL team president, how Sandra Douglas Morgan operates the Raiders. Great job. It was fantastic. I loved every second of it. Thought you did a hell of a job. What was it kind of when you went into that interview? What were you thinking off top about the president, Sandra Douglas Morgan, and how did it change once you came out of that interview?
Well, hey, appreciate you guys having me. I really do. And thank you for watching the interview. Listen, Sandra, you guys have been out there since 2022 now, so it's 4 years. Anniversary just passed, and I respected her genuineness. I really did. Obviously she's in a very tough position. They're all in tough positions when they're the president of business, and you got to go attract money year after year after year. It's a little bit easier in the NFL, but it's still tough. But I respect her, how genuine she was. I respect her people first mindset, and I think that's the reason why she's experienced so much success early. When you go into my favorite business book is Jim Collins. You guys know, listen to the interview. And in that book, it kind of teaches you about the power of we, not I, right? And so I think she definitely possesses that power of thinking we. as an organization. You know, I see CEOs and some presidents, it's just I because they want to be the star. But I think she definitely has the power of that we. And, you know, I think that's why the Raiders are experiencing success under her regime so far.
Why, you know, it's so funny that you mentioned that. The show topic for the day has been them removing the I in the verbiage and making it about we as they got on the field today for practice. And, you know, if that starts at the top, Jabari, it feels like that has to triculate down to the guys in the locker room and the coaches as well, doesn't it?
Most definitely. Listen, I spent my time covering the San Antonio Spurs before I came to Forbes and CNBC before that. And, you know, that if you want to talk about a cultural organization that puts we first, look no further than, you know, what Greg Popovich, R.C. Buford, and those guys built down in San Antonio. And so, you know, I learned that firsthand. I know how to see it, how to spot it. And, you know, I definitely spotted that inside of that Raiders practice facility talking to them. It's definitely a we. And I think hopefully that carrying on from the business side and trickling down to the field, I think, you know, you'll start to see success if that mindset remains.
Jabari Young is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920, Unnecessary Roughness. You mentioned how genuine Sandra Douglas Morgan was in that interview and is as a person in general. And one thing that stood out to me is how she didn't realize how much the Raiders meant to Mark Davis until she was actually there in the foxhole with him and realized, wow, this is everything for him. What did that kind of mean to you when she just kept letting it be known how much the Raiders really mean to MD?
You know, I think, listen, she's grown up out in Vegas, but, you know, they haven't, that organization is just kind of still new to Las Vegas. And so I think that it's probably fair that she didn't understand that history right away. But obviously working for him, I'm sure she sees it right now of what that organization means because, you know, Mark Davis, his father, Al, ran that, you know, organization for a very long time. And when you get one of these type of community assets is what I like to call them in sports teams, you have to take it seriously, right? You have to understand, and that legacy, it has to go from Oakland now to Las Vegas. And so working for him, I'm sure she gets a front row view of it all. And listen, why not? And she should learn, right? Because, you know, if this thing goes the right way, I wouldn't see any reason why Mark would not bequeath that CEO role to her one day. She's president right now of business operations, but, you know, she's clearly in line for a CEO role. And so understanding right away what this organization means to his family and what it now means to Las Vegas, you know, I think that was very brilliant on her part. Is another reason why he selected her to, you know, be president of that team.
What does it mean, and especially for her to be able to have young women across the world really look at her and understand that, wow, she's a president of the Las Vegas Raiders. I could be someone just like that.
You know, you guys know as well as I do, you know, sometimes you got to see people in these roles to understand what you can really do. My mentor coming out of Philadelphia, North Philadelphia at that time, was Stephen A. Smith, right? That was the guy who I looked up and says, man, I can do this, right? If he's doing it, right? And this is before people knew who he was on a bigger scale. But, you know, me having a firsthand view of this brother and seeing his face all over, it made me confident that I could do it. You know, and this is a time when, you know, black sports writers in general were still coming into popularity. And so, you know, I think that carries on to young leaders and executives, sports executives today. There's an organization in Austin called Pro Sports Assembly, and they really do a good job at, you know, fostering, you know, more women to take on these type of leadership roles in high sports positions. And I think, you know, looking at her, you know, those women in that organization, young women in college, young women like my daughter who's 12 years old, who now sees that, you know, you have this individual who pivoted, right, went from lawyer to team president of a sports organization. I think that gives you a whole bunch of confidence that, you know what, I can do this. If I'm in a position that I don't like, or I'm in a position I feel like, you know what, I want to challenge, I can do this because I saw an individual in Las Vegas named Sandra Douglas Morgan who did the same thing.
Jabari Young is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920. He's got a really good interview, sit down with Sandra Douglas Morgan, from lawyer to NFL team president, how Sandra Douglas Morgan operates the Raiders. What did you learn about her leadership and the way that she leads from that sit down with her?
I learned she was a Nutty by Nature fan and a big hip hop fan.
Yes,
you know
she
what
was.
I mean, right? I mean, she is, right? When she said Uptown Anthem, I mean, that for me, like, whoa, Nutty by Nature, that's one of my favorite songs. So,
me too.
You know, I'm impressed by the fact that she's just down to earth. You know, when you hear somebody saying Nutty by Nature, Uptown Anthem, and that got me kind of excited. I'm like, you know, she with it, you know, she's down to earth. Like she's a cultural individual. She understands culture. She understands hip hop, and that's big in culture. So I really respected that. I really, I just saw a human being who was, obviously grateful for the opportunity she's given, but at the same time, not allowing her roots to, fade away because she's in this high spotlight position working for a, mega institution like the NFL on the sports world. So, that struck me, and that was early in the conversation. Once she said that, I think everything kind of just, came into play. Just like, man, you know what? She's special. She really is.
Did it kind of give you that feel of, oh, yeah, we're the same people, right? I mean, we got the same playlist going. I mean, this is the president, but she's jamming Naughty by Nature just like I am.
100%. And, again, I come from North Philly, Naughty by Nature. They come from Newark, New Jersey. And so that music, that was a part of my childhood coming up. You heard that song on the radio a whole bunch. And so her being from Las Vegas, you didn't think that music transcended at that point, right? But for it to travel that far and for it to have that connection point, and it's through hip hop. Again, I respect that because, again, I come from it. And so, having that be a quality about her, like, oh, snap, this sister loves hip hop, seeing the Nutty by Nature and all. I mean, that just was another connection point. And I would think that, those connection points happen frequently with the fans out there, especially as she walks around the stadium. Now, you understand, like, so if you walk around the stadium as a Raiders fan, all you got to do is just, sing that Uptown anthem from Lady by Nature, and she's going to turn her head, and you might get a great conversation started just off of that one little small thing. So again, that really stood out to me. And a lot of times in these positions, you don't see those people like that. They're so tight. They're so, tight-lipped. They don't want to say the wrong thing, and her, she just let her guard down, and I saw a real human being, and I saw somebody who was herself.
And to give her credit and for her flowers, to take it a step further, when she's out at practice or she's at the stadium or she's out in town, she's that same person. She's so cool and chill and welcoming to Raider Nation. She's always giving her time, like taking pictures with people, and she's just really cool. And it's hard, Jabari, as you know, to find people that genuinely are like that consistently.
100%. And, and that's right there is what's going to continue to allow the fan base to believe and trust in her, and, to allow the community to do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So, like, the fact that she has those attributes, that down-to-earth people mentality, I think that's going to pay just huge dividends in the future. No matter if the team does well or not, obviously, you win games and, you grow revenue. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to do business as an individual partnership with Sandra Douglas Morgan and the Raiders because I like Sandra. I love, just her character. And by the way, I like Uptown Anthem too. And it's just, again, that's just a connection point, and I cannot overstate how connection points in today's society really means anything when you're trying to, build that human relationship.
What was the motivation? When people write books, I always say, hey, what was it that, made you want to write this book? What was it that you said, you know what, I need to sit down with the president of the Raiders?
Well, listen, I know she doesn't like to, emphasize it, and, or I shouldn't say emphasize it, but she doesn't like to, kind of magnify it as much, that she's the first black, woman in that role. I think that's what struck me. It's like, talking to him when it first happens, that's the easy part, right? Because, it's the media play, right? Everybody is excited by it, but I really wanted to give it time. It was always on my radar, but I wanted to say, I want to allow this individual to grow in this role, so we'll have more to talk about in depth. Because when you first get on the role, she doesn't know the people in the organization. She doesn't know the strategy she's going to implement. But now, 4 years on the job, I thought it was a great conversation to have because you would think in 4 years she would have learned a lot. Mark would have trusted her. And listen, the numbers speak for themselves, right? Only behind the Dallas Cowboys, the Raiders are right there in team revenue, more than $800 million. And so, I thought it was just a great time to kind of revisit a major hire that we saw during a very interesting time in our country, and then really kind of sit down and see what she learned and also how she's growing as a leader.
I've had so many conversations with her, and early on, she said, yeah, I'm the first Q, but I want to make sure I'm not the last. I hope that, we don't have to keep talking about me being the first, me being first. Instead, the door is going to be open for many to come following me. And I feel like that she really is going to help open doors for others. And that, Jabari, is going to be huge as well.
100%. Listen, and she emphasized that, she doesn't want to be, the last, but also I think, she doesn't want just a few people in that role, right? I think, her hire and her continuing to open doors for people. Perhaps in a few years, you'll see, 3 or 4, women or people of color in those roles. And they don't really come open often. So, again, she is a person who you look at, you could put her face on the wall and say, I aspire to be that. And I think, and this industry is dominated by men, both on the field as well as off. But, seeing his hires, and listen, kudos to the NFL. Quietly, they have really diversified their front offices from a business level, right? We always see the black head coaches, and that's always a problem. It's always a narrative depending on which coaching cycle you see or which coaching cycle you experience. But over the last few years, I don't think the NFL has gotten enough credit. And I've been hard on them, but I think now you got to salute them. You have Kevin Warren out in Chicago. Jason Wright before that was with the Commanders. Now he's in the private investment world. You have the Damani out with Denver Broncos, right? Damani Leach. And now you have Sandra Douglas Morgan, right? Those are 3-4 black executives I named who have high roles as CEO or team presidents, right? I don't think you would have seen that back in the day in the early 90s or even the early 2000s, but they've done a really good job at diversifying their business operations from the top teams have, and I think they're going to see huge dividends pay off for it.
Jabari Young from Forbes is with us here, Raider Nation Radio 920. We'll close out with this fantastic stuff. We do appreciate your time. When it's all said and done and you walked away from that interview, I mean, what was, I guess, your final takeaway from that sit-down with Sandra Douglas Morgan?
You know what? She is really a smart individual who is trying her best to learn how to masterclass this role, and I think she's off to a great start. What's going to be missing now is just winning a championship, and so. Right. Listen, I ain't going to front. I'm on this radio, but I'm not going to, ruin my own NFL roots. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, right? I know, crazy. Philadelphia guy, Dallas Cowboys fan.
Yeah, how does that
right?
happen?
I'm getting booed. I know, right? I'm getting booed, right? I'll tell you about that story a different day. But you know what, though? Winning a Super Bowl now, that's the only thing that she needs on her resume to really solidify herself as, like, one of the top team presidents in all of NFL. And so, you kind of root for the Raiders because, again, you kind of root for her. And so I'm rooting for her and by default root for the Raiders to succeed. And if they do, and I think that they will under her regime, that's just another trophy for her to carry along with her as she continues her career.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're definitely winning on the business side of things, as you pointed out, right? So she's definitely handling her business, and they've got to handle it on the field side of things as well. But if it all comes together, then it could be a nice marriage right there between Sandra Douglas Morgan, the team, and just the overall success in the community and in the NFL in general. Well, really good stuff. Again, the piece is out right now. Go check it out. It's been out for like a week or so. From lawyer to NFL team president, how Sandra Douglas Morgan operates the Raiders. Really, really good stuff. Jabari, what else are you working on, my man, that we should be on the lookout for?
Listen, we got an interview with Mark Tatum, the deputy commissioner, coming out this weekend. So, talking some NBA business now that LeBron has chosen Philly, right? You got a Philly guy on. So,
there you go.
I think that's a very interesting conversation, particularly because and this is where Las Vegas should really pay attention, because I asked him about what's going on in Portland, because that looks like a relocation play. And it's a very high possibility that if that's true, Vegas might, be the beneficiary. So definitely check that out.
Definitely will. Hey, great job, man. That was a really good sit-down with Sandra Douglas Morgan. Thanks so much for giving us some time to explain it and tell us where it came from. Like I said, it was really good. We appreciate your time.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Jabari Young right there from Forbes, at Jabari J. Young on Twitter. And I remember when he was covering the San Antonio Spurs, and it's really cool to be able to kind of diversify yourself and do multiple different sports and have multiple different angles, and now working for Forbes. And it's not a bad place to be working as far as I'm concerned. So many thanks to Jabari. Do appreciate him. We'll appreciate you as we close out hour number one. We'll hear from you next at 702-365-9200. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
I think we got a lot of leaders in the offense line room. Obviously Colton, has been here for a long time and has played at a high level. I think as a role as a center, it's your job to, get everyone in the right spots, communicate as best as you can, and then, get everyone to play at a high level, which is, I think, very critical and important. And the more we can do that, the more successful we're going to be as a team.
Now back to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right.
That's the guy who's been tasked with being the leader of that offensive line group, Tyler Linderbaum, the center, but you hear how he diverted my question from him being the leader to we have leaders in that room. Talked about Colton Miller. So, again, the theme of the show has been we, not I, and you're hearing all the response from players, coaches who we've had an opportunity to talk to so far in this short period of time that they've been in training camp, and that's what you're getting. The overall theme is we. I threw the question out there, how much do you believe this team will benefit from buying into the we and not I, as for what we saw in previous years? Even last year, there was a lot of I going on around and not very much we. As a matter of fact, Jabari Young, who joined us in the last segment to talk about Sandra Douglas Morgan not being prompted, said that, her approach is we and not I. And I thought, wow, that blows my mind that this has been the theme of the conversation, and all of a sudden he brought that up. So we always say it starts at the top, right? Leadership starts at the top and trickles its way down. Perfect example without even, us trying to bring that and generate that from Jabari Young. We got Cynthia Frelund coming up at the top of the hour. It's Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. But with that question being said, we got this text from Eric. It's always good to hear from Eric. Hey, Q, I don't think it's a matter of how much the players buy into anything. It's more of either you do or you're gone. What I like most about Kubiak is it's his way or the highway, and I'll say it, Vita Vea is 100% faking his injury. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. He all of a sudden has a tweak when he's trying to get his contract extension. And like I said, we've seen players with tweaks that all of a sudden can't go as well. And the thing is, I don't think it's necessarily Kubiak's way or the highway. It's just the Raiders' way. You know what I mean? And it's just this is how they want to approach things. So it's not necessarily – because I feel like more it was Josh McDaniels when he was the Raiders head coach. He was like, do it my way, do it my way, do it my way. If you don't do it my way, it doesn't work. And the perfect example was how Hunter Renfrow ran routes, right? Hunter got open, but he wanted him to do it his way. I don't feel like that's the way with Kubiak. I just feel like it's how they're going about their business together as a team. And he's very football-oriented. He's not about – doing WWE-type skits before practice and having coaches around and big blow-up balls in the middle and all that other stuff, where that was a lot of fun. That was fun for us to watch during training camp. I had a hell of a time watching the fun and excitement that they were having, but they weren't getting any work done. They weren't getting better when they were going through that. This is all focused in on getting better each and every day. But
I think Tom has a vision of what he wants this to look like, how he wants to slow play this for Fernando's sake, and I get it. I think it's just a matter of time. This guy is just too big, too strong, too devoted, too committed to be held back. I think eventually you're going to have no other choice but to put him on the football field, and I think it's going to be a little bit of both. It's going to be because of his ascension and his development, and because for Kirk, as much as I love him, respect him as a player and as a person, you're going to look at the two and you're going to go, yeah, the guy's better. This is going to give us more upside here. And we got to put him out there.
It's Unnecessary Roughness. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right. Here's your boy Q.
As we kick off hour number 2 of the show, we come into the sound of ESPN's Louis Riddick talking about, one of the biggest storylines of the National Football League when it comes to, just the National Football League in general, and that's Fernando Mendoza. Is he going to start or is he not going to start? Clint Kubiak said on yesterday that when the Raiders took the field today, Kirk Cousins would be the starting quarterback, and he was. And it looks like Kirk Cousins is going to be the starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. But as Clint Kubiak mentioned, he expects Fernando Mendoza and Aiden O'Connell to push Kirk Cousins. So that's the storyline. That's going to be something that's talked about, not just with us, but across the league. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network, Number Games on YouTube and more joins us now. And Cynthia, first of all, welcome back to football. How are you feeling? We're back.
We did it. We did it. I mean, listen, this is actually a weird year because summer is longer because it's the latest Labor Day can be. So we have this extra, it's like 108 days of summer this year if you count summer as Memorial to Labor. So we actually have this extra, we should already be back. It's so strange, it's a little strange. So we're running late.
I'll tell you what, it didn't feel like we really were ever gone, right? I mean, with as busy as the Raiders offseason was, it really it felt like we had like a couple weeks and that was it.
It always feels like that, and I feel like we're going to go to 18 games and then maybe even more, and it's just going to be year-round football. I mean, it already is year-round football, but I mean, just when you think you've seen it all, then you're like, okay, they're going to go add more.
Yeah, and they will, and you know that's right. Cynthia Frelund is joining us here on RaiderNation Radio 920. So you heard the sounds of Louis Riddick talking about Fernando Mendoza, and obviously that's been a big storyline. When to start him, if he should start day one. What did you think about Clint Kubiak coming out and saying Kirk Cousins is our guy?
Not surprising. In many ways, you always see the veteran, at least in July, get the nod, whether or not week one, if you're looking at what happens against the Dolphins, that might actually not be a terrible place to start. If you think about, I don't think the Dolphins pass rush is the scariest one that the team will face. So, I think right now, Kirk Cousins is starter. That's kind of like the veteran, like you make that move because you bring in this guy and, he has all this cachet and he's a nice person that you want to honor. So I think right now, of course, he's a starter, but let's see what happens come week one.
What do you think it will take, and I asked this question to Raider Nation last week, what do you think it will take for Fernando to earn the job out of training camp? Not just be given it to him because he's the number one overall pick, but actually earn it.
I think it's an understanding of the playbook and how to communicate in a way that executes the plan that Coach Kubiak wants for him to execute. If he can do those things, remember, we always forget about the small things that preseason, we talk about preseason as being like, oh God, preseason, but the small things that happen there are, when you're in for a series and you learn when the headset goes dark, because remember there's an 8-second lag where you have to pause. That's a difference that if you're not ready for it, it can be jarring. So I think it will be things like, that's just one tiny example, but understanding the playbook, having the grasp on the playbook to execute. And then, by the way, when things break down, because they will always break down, and that's not a Raider-specific thing, that's an every team-specific thing, does he have the reflexes and the types of responses that coach can handle? Can you live with it? Or is it going to be a turnover situation? And if it's a turnover situation, then they'll have him sit, I would imagine, a little bit longer. But I don't think that will be the case based on what we saw in college. But I think it's a handle of the playbook and a handle of the communication necessary to execute the playbook.
Now, you're around the team. You talk to coaches. You talk to players. You're out at the facility. You're seeing practices. They're having a very much we approach instead of an I approach. Kubiak said we took I out of the verbiage. John Spytek said the same thing today. And Sandra Douglas Morgan, the president, has been operating in the we process instead of I. How beneficial do you think that'll be that everyone is all sounds like on the same page and has the same agenda now?
That's really every team ever in the history of the National Football League. You have to be on the same page. It's really not a game where you can have sole players coming out. It's not like basketball. It's a complete team sport. Even if your quarterback tries to go a little, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't ever get you where you need to go. So, and I say this with all sincerity, every single team right now is espousing this we culture. Let's see who can actually put it together and make that happen for 17 weeks of the season, 17 games in an 18-week season, and get there. It's really easy to be we in July, August. It's a lot harder in October, November.
Right, exactly. And so it's just something that as I look back at last year and I feel like that there was a lot of different agendas pulling in different directions, I feel like that this is at least a positive start for this team. Now, obviously It's not the end, but it's a positive start because it does seem like they're at least at the same blocks. They have the same starting blocks as opposed to what they did last season.
Yeah, look, you're already tracking better, so that there's that, right? So, you also have to remember that as much as we'd like Fernando Mendoza to come out here and make the Raiders a different team day one, it's really like he is one of 53. Well, right now over 100, right? So now you have to figure out how everything falls in line and where does everything, how does the process work, right? We all talk about, and it's very well documented, how Max Crosby is like a gym rat. He really works his butt off. How do you make 1 through 53? The quote unquote gym rat? Maybe not all of them need to be in the gym as much as Max Crosby, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Get that kind of focus and dedication so that they get the outcomes that they're looking for. And look, it is hard. It is human nature to get tired, and we all have to think about digging deep. And this is everyone in every job ever. But remember, the concentration of 18 weeks for a regular season is a lot of pressure in a short amount of time.
Yeah, especially because there's the downfalls and the adversity that you're going to face is inevitable. Like, that's on the way. It's going to happen. It happens with every single team. Again, Cynthia Frelund is with us here. Raider Nation Radio 920. I did want to scatter shoot across the league with you, and let's start in Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield did not get a contract extension, so he says, hey, I'll play out the season. I'll be a free agent. Yeah, they can hit him with the franchise tag if they want to, but how do you see this thing playing out? Do you anticipate him getting a long-term deal in Tampa Bay, or what's going to happen there?
It's super interesting because you now have Vita Vea compounding the narrative saying he would like to be traded, which it's a business decision. It's not like sometimes it feels like this, like somebody hates somebody. It's like, no, that is my monies that needs to be in my bank account. So
right.
It's not necessarily it's not bad blood. No one's mad at Todd Bowles as far as I've heard, et cetera. But, you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, they've got a cap situation. It's probably a little bit to do with monetizing Tom Brady after he left because, they kind of they amortize things out over this long schedule and you have to pay it at some point and you can't pay everyone. So it's come to roost, kind of, would be my guess. But I think they need to figure out strategically how they're going, what's the alignment for the team going forward? Because Baker's not a highest paid quarterback type of contract. So it's kind of weird that you're allowing that to be a sticking point, this year and potentially letting him go. It's not like, sure, this next year quarterbacks, maybe we think right now there'll be more than just one that could be out there in the marketplace to draft that would be worth a first-round pick, or maybe, I guess two, because the Rams did two, but you know what I'm saying. But ultimately, we always say next year, better quarterback year, next year, better quarterback year, and it's unclear if that's going to be the case. But I think they really got to get the Vita Vea thing under control first, because as you see, every single day it feels like we're hearing one of his fellow position mates on a different team resetting the market.
Yep.
So you're really going to let the Jalen Carter contract get out in front of you? Yikes. Like, that stuff's hard. And so they're not making it easier on themselves out there in Tampa.
When you look at the Jalen Carter situation, that contract that he signed, obviously resetting that defensive tackle market, Vita Vea is obviously older. He's 31 years old. So
Sure.
How do you think that they would address that? He's not going to reset the market, but how close to what Jalen Carter got do you think he could possibly be in line for?
I think, look, I think the thing that will be different would be the bottom, meaning the guaranteed number. My guess would be that the way Jalen Carter's contract is structured is a higher guaranteed number, whereas we'll bring Vita Vea's contract upside down, let's call it 20%, but the guarantee is probably lower because that is what I've seen trend-wise. Older players who still have a lot of at least perceived, gas in the tank left, they're just getting fewer guaranteed dollars, but like the potential for upside is still there.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen with that market and obviously, other guys that are trying to get contracts. And it's funny, like guys are signing contracts right now and guys are holding out or holding in, I guess is the way you want to say it. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's not practicing. Bijan Robinson, they're not practicing right now, but they're both at camp. So, are these guys, you think that they'll get a deal with their respective teams anytime soon?
Obviously, where I'm from, so
Yep.
The Lions one hits me like a little wrong because you can't draft a guy in the first round and then not pay him. It's weird. When he performs as a first rounder, you can say running back, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you draft him where you did, the expectation is what it is. Same thing with Bijan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I look at the markets and I say, the Lions aren't paying top dollar for a quarterback. The Falcons, to be fair, their quarterback situation got even more murky today because Michael Penix is still not clear. So maybe they're at least a little murky with what's going on quarterback-wise. Like, it's Tua, like this, that, the other thing. And they're paying for a guy who's no longer there. We know that is never an easy thing on your salary cap. So I think they'll both get done, and I think they'll both be big numbers. It's just, it seems silly to me. Like, look, the Lions, and be harsh on them because I want them to be good, and my whole life they've done nothing but let me down. And, I just don't, they can't even, the president hasn't been hired yet, and they announced that he was leaving a long time ago. And it just seems like there's some things there that could be tightened up in a way that would at least feel to us outsiders like they had a plan and like they didn't just get hit in the mouth last year and we're like, okay, we got hit in the mouth.
Right.
So it just feels different.
Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network Numbers Game on YouTube, is with us here. RaiderNation Radio 920. What's your anticipation level for the Chargers and what they're going to look like this year with Mike McDaniel as the OC there?
Mike McDaniel is the OC. Adam Gase also. So you got two former head coaches on that offensive side of the ball. You have Justin Herbert getting engaged. I mean, it better be good, right? What happened when Josh Allen got engaged? No, I'm just kidding. But let's hope it's good. It feels like, sure, you could say they have some questions that maybe like which wide receivers, extra, what's going on. But I feel like if their tackles are healthy, last year, obviously, their O-line was decimated, and that's unfair to judge. But if their tackles are back in place and they can keep that O-line healthy, if they mess it up, it's completely on. Like, they have no reason not to. This is a good roster. They feel like they should be in contention. It feels like they should have a little more juice this year, at least if the O-line is healthy. I stand by that. But, I mean, again, if the O-line's not healthy, then everything's up in the air because Justin Herbert was out there running for his life. And he did well, but that's a hard way to live.
Well, they won 11 games last year, and like you said, he did well. And, Cynthia, I always sound like a hater when I say this, but he's a really good quarterback, but he hasn't had that success in the postseason yet. And so I keep asking, well, how come there's not more criticism or there's not more conversation about what he hasn't done yet? Why is that? He's part of the $50 million a year club, and it seems like nobody really talks about what he hasn't done when they do that with other quarterbacks.
You know, I'm going to say this. I don't think they have, like, a ton of fans. Like, the fan base is just not as engaged. So, I say that in I live here, right? Like, right. I just feel like, you know, there are certain fan bases who are very, very, very active in how they, you know, like, you know, obviously the Raiders are one of them, but the Steelers, dear God, you say something like, I don't think the Steelers are going to win 9 games. You might as well, like, you like signed a death ticket there. Like, it's crazy. So I think part of it is, and Justin Herbert's also not very controversial himself. He doesn't, you know, he stays out of the public eye in large part and doesn't really, you know, put himself out there in a way that he seems like a nice kid and is in fact boring, if anything else. So I think part of it is the Chargers have not moved the needle as much as maybe they thought they would after moving to Los Angeles. I don't know. That's just what it seems like.
Yeah, it's always, to me, it's always a mystery. Like, every quarterback that is in that $50 million club, whether it's Jalen Hurts or it's Josh Allen or if it's Lamar Jackson, or you insert that quarterback, if they struggle, especially in the postseason, we're all going to talk about it and we're all going to hear about it. And it seems like that it's always, all right, well, Justin Herbert's coach was not good. His tackles were injured. His weapons weren't there. Yeah. I mean, it always seems like it's someone else and not him.
It's a fair point, but, you know, you also have to realize Philadelphia Eagles fans, they are nothing if not, what's the word, engaged. They're a very engaged fan base.
Yes. No, there's no.
So, and same thing with Baltimore. So in Buffalo, I mean, you know how, like, you'll see it. When do they come? Like sometime in October, I think. The Bills fans will be in Allegiant and they will be out there. The Mafia will come. You know, you just don't see that same sort of level of, like, passion. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got something to do with it. It's got to, but it always blows my mind. Well, we'll close out with this, and I hate to, bring up bad stuff, but the Panthers have been riddled with injuries already. I mean, man, with 3 days and all these injuries, it's, Cynthia, some of these teams, it just happens. Like, some years, it's just a bad year for you when it comes to health, and it looks like this year it might be Carolina.
Well, there's a guy that used to work for Carolina in their performance staff. I can't remember, like, strength and conditioning, blah. I can't remember, like, the exact title that he was. And he has gone to the Texans. And ever since he left, it feels like something has changed. So perhaps Andrew Altoff should get a little bit more credit for how well he keeps people, on the field and what that staff there is able to do when they work together, because I think that really does matter. And, you can't take those things for granted. Some of it's luck. Let's just be clear. You can't, you can't control for most of it, But on the other hand, you also have to realize, like, sometimes, again, I'm from Okemos, Taylor Moton from Okemos. That is not a normal thing for, there's some unlucky things. But on the other hand, it's like, the player minutes lost, you'll see, got to give some love where love is due, and Andrew Althoff, the man.
I'll tell you this. They've already got a guy that tore his LCL. They've got a guy that tore his ACL. Yeah, I mean, they've had a guy carted off, and they've got many different dudes already that are going to miss the beginning of the season. Moton, like you mentioned. I mean, sometimes it's just a bad season when it comes to health, and it looks like Carolina's getting hit with it for sure. Well, Cynthia, great stuff as always. It's always great catching up with you. What are you working on, and are you going to be at a Raiders camp anytime soon?
I believe I'll be at Raiders camp. I want to say the 12th. I don't know.
Okay.
I can only live like about 3 or 4 days out at a time.
Okay.
Saturday I'm going to Denver, but I think I'll be out there on the 12th. I want to say a Wednesday. So I will be coming eventually, and I can't wait to go sweltering heat style at Vegas. Is my favorite part of the year. I love camp and see all the different changes and what's going on. And numbers game is coming back next week, baby. We're back.
There it is. That's what I'm talking about. Well, we'll definitely be all locked in on it as always. Great stuff. I know we'll be catching up with you soon. Thanks so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, sounds good. Talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, we'll see you. Cynthia Frelund right there, NFL Network and Number Games on YouTube. It is coming back. Like she said, we are back. That's always great. It's a great watch, a great listen. Definitely check out Cynthia Frelund. We appreciate her, and we appreciate you. 702-365-9200. We definitely want you to chime in on the show. And, man, if you're the Carolina Panthers, man, you are feeling so bad about your health or lack of health so far this year. You get through 3 days of training camp, and you've already have 2 major injuries. You've got guys that are they've been out. They're going to be out. It's just it's all bad. So there you go. Keep that feedback coming, 702-365-9200. We've been talking about the we and the not the I. How much do you believe that the team will benefit from buying into that? Something that we heard Clint Kubiak mention, something that we've heard John Spytek mention this morning, something that we heard Jabari Young mention a little while ago when he was talking about Sandra Douglas Morgan and the way that she leads as well. Got a lot of feedback on the text line, but we do want to hear you on the phone lines as well. This one comes from Diego in Arizona. He said, I believe the we is more important than the ever. For example, last season we had Devin with the most tackles, but the team lost many games. Individual success feels better when the team wins more. Also, who Crosby was talking about in the presser when having a linebacker the same size as him. That's Diego in Arizona. He was talking about Quay Walker. I had asked him, what he was feeling about the new additions, right? We've talked about it on the show, that these are some of probably the best difference makers that he's played in his career so far, his teammates, just because seems like there's difference makers on all levels. And he said, I looked back in a walkthrough that we had at the facility back at OTAs. I looked back and Quay Walker gave him a call, and he started laughing. And he's like, what are you laughing at, bro? And he said, man, I haven't looked back and seen a linebacker that's as big as me. And Quay Walker is a big dude. It was nice to see Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean out there today. Right, Nakobe Dean was a guy that we hadn't seen in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. They were trying to get him to training camp, but they did. He was out there. Now his leg had a sleeve on it, right? So do with that what you want. But he was out there. He was participating, and that was a good sign. Jamad McCoy, it was a good sign to see him there as well. And it's multiple times now we've seen McCoy when he was out there, and he was on the field returning punts with the special teams unit. So it's just kind of one of those. Just keep that in the back of your mind that we've seen that back at OTAs. We saw him returning punts, and at first I couldn't find him. I'm going through my roster and I'm trying to mark off everybody. I said, wait, hold on. Clint Kubiak said McCoy was going to be out here. I don't see him yet. And then all of a sudden realized, oh, there he is over there on the other side of the field, and he's returning punts. And then obviously we saw him when they came to the field that was closest to us when they were going through team drills. And he's a guy that I'm intrigued by what he's going to look like, how healthy he is, and what kind of a role he can carve out for himself. Hezekiah Masses, who I think a lot of people are getting excited about as they saw him running with the ones as well. And the one thing I can say, man, he stayed. As a matter of fact, Ryan Hogue was out there as well, former Raider wide receiver. He was out there observing practice, and so I was talking to him a lot today. And I liked Hezekiah's his jam at the line of scrimmage and then his ability to stay in the hip pocket of the wide receiver. I thought that was really good. It's so funny because I pointed it out to Ryan and Jesse Merrick, and I said, man, The way that he jams and then he's able to move and stay in their hip pocket, that's perfect. And then right when I said that, he jammed and he stayed in the hip pocket, but he definitely would have got called for a penalty. I mean, he had his hands wrapped around the wide receiver's waist, and I want to say the wide receiver might have been Trey Tucker, and so he definitely would have been called for a penalty there. But for the most part, I thought that he looked really good and comfortable in that role. And remember, what I'm really paying attention to with Masses is not can he cover. I have no doubt that he can cover. I have no doubt that he has ball skills. Our big question with him, because of his size, is he going to be able to be physical enough, right? Is he going to be able to get guys to the ground, tackle them, and not have to try to make business decisions? But he looked good out there today. He looked comfortable. I mean, this is a guy that's listed at 6 foot and 179 pounds. So, he's not the biggest dude, but he did look really comfortable in there, and I was encouraged by seeing him being able to jam at the line of scrimmage and then be able to get off the jam really quickly and get into the hip pocket of the wide receiver and somewhat run the route for him. Because when you start doing that, ask EA. I'm sure I'll get Eric Allen on the show sometime this week. Ask EA, even if I have to grab him, off to the side there at the facility, you could run the route for the wide receiver. You're gonna create a lot of turnovers, and that's something Hezekiah Masses did at Cal. So that's something to pay attention to as well. 702-365-9200. Let's see. We got this one from Brent. He says, seems like Tampa Bay isn't the same without John Spytek. Also, I lost a lot of respect for Vita Vea for the injury that just happened out of nowhere. This proves that we don't need guys like that on the team. Clear example of an eye player. It's a good point. I mean, I know what he's trying to do. Obviously, he's trying to get the contract extension, and, it's not a coincidence. As soon as I saw that, he's not practicing today, I know, okay, I know exactly what's going on. And so I prefer players to go about it a different way, but I understand, right? I know that they have to do whatever they have to do in efforts to try to get their contract, but I totally understand where you're coming from. And, it's one of those where your teammates, I mean, they're not going to judge you because they're never going to count another man's pockets. That's one of those unwritten rules in the locker room, but they just know that, hey, this guy's not out here with us, and this is the reason why. Especially like, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, those guys are there at practice, but they're holding in, right? They didn't practice, so they're not getting fined. Well, Vita Vea went about it another way. Oh, I just tweaked this, and so I'm not a big fan of that either. But I understand the business of the NFL, so I guess they're trying to do that. But to your point, especially with the team that the Raiders are trying to build right now, the culture that they're trying to set right now, it's really hard to see them go out and make a move for a guy at his age and wanting that contract extension. And I don't think he gets anything close to what we saw Jalen Carter get. But if that's what his eyes are on, well, okay, let Tampa Bay go ahead and have those issues. The Raiders don't need them. And it's funny, that's a team that's normally there's not a lot of noise around them. I mean, half the time, especially when Mike Evans was out there doing his thing, we would talk about, well, who's the best wide receivers in the league? And I would even forget. I'd even forget about Mike Evans. And all he was Mr. Consistent there. It just seemed like Tampa Bay is always that team that we didn't really talk about a lot until obviously Tom Brady went there and did his thing. But it just seems like they're not that one that you all of a sudden think of immediately. But the first couple of days of training camp, and I heard Rick Stroud on the Rich Eisen show today, he said, yeah, normally we just slide into camp and it kind of flies under the radar. And he said, man, it's only been a couple of days, and we're the biggest headlines in the NFL right now, and they are. And that's just not something that's normal for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But thanks for that text. Definitely appreciate you. Keep that feedback coming to 702-365-9200. How much do you believe this team will benefit from buying into the we and not I concept that we heard from Clint Kubiak, John Spytek, even Jabari Young? We'll hear from you, plus we'll do football right. We'll do it next here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
Right now, we're doing football right on Unnecessary Roughness. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
And we are doing football right here on Unnecessary Roughness, RaiderNation Radio 920. And as we do football right, we continue to roll with the theme of the show, which is we, because we are family, right? I've got Raider Nation with me. Oh, look out now. Come on now, Ari. Man, first I was a Southern Baptist. Now I'm trying to sing a tune or two, man. Boy. Look out. That just means that I need another job, man. Times are getting tough, right? I need another job. So
you sure do.
I'm looking for a side hustle. I don't know if you know one, but I'm looking for a side hustle.
This guy. You never work ever, so, I mean, come on. I'm sure we can find somewhere.
Hey, look, man,
in
you
your
need me to
easy
install some
schedule
cable. You need me to do, you know what I mean? What you need me to do, man?
Maybe a mailman.
Looking for an extra delivery guy? What you need, man?
Sell some vacuum cleaners? I don't know.
I know how to wrap meat. You, man, used to work at the grocery store. I know how to, send me to the meat department, man. I got you. So
a lot of skills.
Yeah, we're trying to. I feel like one of those what they say, man of many skills, but a master of none.
Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none.
There it is. That's how I roll. That's exactly how I roll here on RaiderNation Radio 920. But yeah, we've been talking about we as opposed to I is something that Clint Kubiak said. He said that we removed the I from the verbiage. It's all about we. And I think Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network brought up a great point when she said, yeah, that's what every team is trying to do now in July. But what is it like in September? What is it like when you've lost a couple games? What is it like when a guy next to you may have blown a play and then all of a sudden you're looking at him like, what are you doing? And start to question your teammates. So that's the theme right now. And I do believe that's a culture that Clint Kubiak and company are trying to set. But what really caught my attention is not when Clint Kubiak said it. What caught my attention as we do football right here on RaiderNation Radio 920 is when John Spytek joined the morning tailgate this morning, 7 o'clock. If you missed it, please go back, lvsportsnetwork.com. Check out the interview. Really good stuff. Vinny Clay and Vince Sapienza. Vince was there at Raiders Facility HQ. And 7 a.m. on the dot, he sat down and was talking to the fellas. And it was really good conversation. I was listening on the LV Sports Network app from the media room. And Vince brought up the I, removing the I from the verbiage, as Clint Kubiak mentioned, and said it's all about we, and asked John Spytek how he feels about that.
Well, I think the great teams that I've been a part of and the great teams that Clint's been a part of and anybody that's been a part of a great team, that's the message. It's we. It's not, this isn't tennis. This isn't golf. You've got to sacrifice a lot in this sport for the man next to you and the people around you. And I think that, that's really easy for Clint and myself, is because it's how we're wired. We're going to keep hammering that message home. And, the people that we've brought into this organization, that's the way they operate. And that was intentional. And, getting to know Clint through the past 6 months now, whatever it's been, it feels like it's been 2 years and 2 days at the same time.
In a good way.
In a great way. Well, that's the football world, really. It just rolls on. We're going to wake up here in 2 weeks and we'll be playing a football game against the Cardinals. But we've just had a great rapport and a lot of great conversations. And, we're wired the same way with how we see the game and the way that we want to approach it. But we're certainly open to challenging each other and open-minded enough to accept those challenges and think different ways, too.
So that caught my attention earlier today when I heard the GM John Spytek on the morning tailgate talking about we and responding to Vince Sapienza's question. And then not knowing, as we had Jabari Young on from Forbes to start off the show around 2:30, I was asking about Sandra Douglas Morgan, as he did a really good interview, sit down with her, from lawyer to NFL team president, how Sandra Douglas Morgan operates the Raiders. And I asked him about her approach. And this is what he said, again, not leaning into the show topic.
Listen, Sandra, you guys have been out there since 2022 now, so it's 4 years. Anniversary just passed, and I respected her genuineness. I really did. Obviously she's in a very tough position. They're all in tough positions when they're the president of business, and you got to go attract money year after year after year. It's a little bit easier in the NFL, but it's still tough. But I respect her, how genuine she was. I respect her people first mindset, and I think that's the reason why she's experienced so much success early. When you go into, my favorite business book is Jim Collins. You guys know, listen to the interview. And in that book, it kind of teaches you about the power of we, not I, right? And so I think she definitely possesses that power of thinking we as an organization. I see CEOs and some presidents, it's just I because they want to be the star. But I think she definitely has the power of that we. And, I think that's why the Raiders are experiencing success under her regime so far.
So that was Jabari Young literally about an hour ago here on RaiderNation Radio 920. And, again, it was just coincidental that he happened to bring up the book and bring up the power of we, when that's literally been the conversation that we've had on this show. So we want to hear from you at 702-365-9200, continuing with the theme of how much do you believe this team will benefit from buying into we and not I. Got a lot of texts that I'd like to get to at 702-365-9200. This one comes from, I got some really good ones here. Hold on. This one comes from Brent. He said, I think the buy-in is super important. I think Pete Carroll set a precedent of I. He kept on saying, I win games, I do this, I do that, and it was all ego. Mixed with Chip Kelly, who also had his own agenda. It was terrible. Kubiak is resetting it back to a team game, and I think all players are going to buy in, and we'll see how much better they are this year. And that was the key, right? And we did hear Pete Carroll come out and say, I win 10 games every year, right? And obviously it didn't happen, but that was something that he said immediately. And I didn't think that they were in line for 10 wins last year, right? I remember going into the season saying, all right, well, they won 4. You double that, they get around 8. And then also he starts talking about 10, and that's what he does every single year. And so all of a sudden the expectations for myself and Raider Nation went, okay, hey, this is what he's going to do. He knows what he's doing. And, again, it was the Pete Carroll agenda. It was the Chip Kelly agenda. It was John Spytek wanted to see some of his young players and not getting to see them because, the head coach wasn't putting them out there. It was Patrick Graham trying to run his defense while the head coach wanted him to run his defense. So, okay, let's compromise. Let's blend the two. Huh? Right? I mean, it just didn't work. And you know who suffered the most? The players. Because the players are trying to figure out what every one of these guys wanted them to do. Every single one of them. Pete Carroll had his thoughts on what he wanted certain players to do and how he wanted them to operate. And Patrick Graham's trying to teach them another way. And, Chip Kelly liked certain players and didn't like other players. We know JPJ, that was a situation. Jack Besh feels like that there was some reason why he wasn't out there more than he was. And it just, like I said, it just did not seem, and it wasn't, guys on the same page, rowing in the same direction. There was a lot of I last year with the Raiders and not a lot of we. What else do we got? 702-365-9200. We got this one from Sir Whiskey Ray. It's always great to hear from him. What's up, gentlemen? Happy Wednesday. Let me start off by saying I'm pumped for training camp to finally be here. It's been a long wait. Let's go. Hey, Q, since you are there at camp, do you feel a different vibe from years past? Any insight is greatly appreciated. I ain't going to lie, but I'd love to be at camp, sticking my nose in all the positional battles, etc. Other than that, it's great to be back home as I had a quick getaway with my pops at Dodger Stadium last night. Ohtani is something special, and them Dodger fans remind me of Raider fans. Passionate. Thanks as always. Appreciate it. Cheers, Sir Whiskey Ray. If it's not a day that Sir Whiskey Ray is on the road somewhere, it wouldn't be a day. Right? Sir Whiskey Ray is on the road somewhere every single day that ends in Y. Right? I mean, that's exactly what he is. He's all over the place at all times. I'm not mad at that. I'm glad he's having a good time. And, yeah, I mean, what I take away from camp and even what I took away from today, it's all business. It's no, yucking it up, having a good time, this, that, and the third. It's, all right, let's get focused. Let's get our work in. Let's get in and get out and get what we got to do. Right? They're just, as a matter of fact, coaching and teaching and coaching. That's what it's all about. It's no of the rah-rah. It's no of the having fun. The big fat heads like they had last year. They had like Pete Carroll's face was on a stick, and they would, run around and chase the players around with it. And they had the big inflatable ball with the coach in the middle of it. And, again, it was fun for us to watch. I was super entertained. Right? Watching the way that they would before they started practice, they would kind of go through their little scrum. It was entertaining as hell. It just didn't translate to anything. And so there's none of that. Right? It seems like practice is a lot more quiet and you're able to hear more that's going on the field. Right? I mean, there's music that plays at certain times, but then there's other periods where it's just boom, let's get to work, right? The music doesn't need to be on, just work. So it's just really focused. I think if I had to put one word on practice, what I've seen so far, it's focused. And I think that's a good thing. Right? Now, if you're a team that has been successful for 8-10 years, whatever, you've been successful each and every year, you're a team that you know is going to go to the playoffs each and every year, and maybe you get a little loose at practice, okay, that's one thing. But when you're trying to establish yourself and you haven't been that for a very long time, there's you don't really have too much wiggle room. It's all about getting to work and getting focused. So there's so many different ways to approach these things. There's not one certain way. It's not one size fits all. Everything is different for everybody else. But for me and what I'm seeing from this coaching staff, it seems like this is going to be a really good approach for them. And all we could do is hope that it translates to the players and what they're doing on the field. But it just feels like that this is a very good approach that they have as they're trying to build this and establish this culture with the Raiders. 702-365-9200. Got a lot of feedback on the text line and the phone line. Let's go out to Sacramento, California. Let's go out to the 916. Talk to our guy, Raider Greg. Raider Greg, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Q, my brother, thank you for taking my call. You and Ari as well. How you doing, brother? How was that heat out there today?
Hey, man, it was good. It wasn't too bad. We got out there at 7:30, so it got warm, but, we were all right, man. We're all right.
Good. We're built for that. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing. We, I wondered if our guy Kirk came with that bucket. If he came with that bucket hat today, was he?
Nah, he just had a baseball hat. He had a regular Raider hat on today.
All right, we'll forgive him and tell him we holding him to his word. Getting straight to it. I think the we is always important, right? Building a team. And I loved, I think it was a text that the guy, I forgot who it was, who talked about how there was a lot of I with Pete Carroll and talking about their individual resumes. I think that was a great point. So salute out to my brother in Raider Nation who stated that because I thought the same thing. I heard a lot of I, everybody kind of putting their individual resumes up. And, it starts from the top down, right? And, like you say, it's not coincidence that Miss Morgan and Spytek and everybody speaking the same language because that's going to drip down to the team. And obviously, Cynthia, as always, makes good points. Like she said, it's easy to do it now, right? In the beginning when you're all come together as a team. But I just super excited, man, and loving the, I felt like I refreshed my Twitter feed and YouTube 700,000 times today. So waiting for the next video, just chomping at the bit. It's funny. One of the customers came in today from the wineries and stopped in. And he was like, "You fired up? The season's back." I'm like, it's Raider Nation. We live it 24/7, 365, man. And it's just a blessing that we have this now that the game is back, and just super excited with the talent that's on the team, and it's super excited for you guys to be able to see that as well, because for us, we're excited, of course, but, the talent that Spytek and the guys have brought in, I mean, it's the best talent. I keep saying it, but it just on paper is the best talent I've seen with the Raiders in years. It's funny because even Max saying what he said about Quay, about just looking like, man, this guy's a specimen, right? And at linebacker, and then him telling Max, like, yeah, it's going to be different this year. I just love that, man, because I can tell, like, it's rejuvenated Max as well, right? Because he's seen these guys have success individually and on other teams, playoff teams, and so now these are his running mates. So I'm just super excited for the team to just continue to grow together. Looking forward to seeing all the different battles. But I know one thing, man. We were at rock bottom last year. We can only go up from here. And it seems like the team is all in unison. Can't wait to see those pads come on. God bless you. God bless Raider Nation.
Hey, really good call, man. Really good call. Mic drop moment right there from Raider Greg in Sacramento representing that 916. Definitely appreciate that call, man. Really, really good feedback. And, yeah, keep that party rolling. 702-365-9200. We'll close out hour number 2. We'll hear from you next here on Raider Nation Radio 920.
Doing football right on Unnecessary Roughness. Brought to you by Meineke. Doing car care right.
I feel like you can accomplish anything in the world. So my mindset coming into this, like I said, like obviously everyone's talking about he's got a chip on his shoulder. And I always got a chip on my shoulder no matter what. So yeah, of course I felt, the whole situation, talked about it a million times and, done talking about it. But yeah, of course there's added motivation, but it's beautiful. At the same time, I love being doubted. I love being told I can't do something because I know I'm gonna go to the end of the world and make it happen.
You're listening to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
No doubt there's a chip on Max Crosby's shoulder, but as you heard from the man himself right there's always a chip on his shoulder. And, again, I mentioned it. I talked about it in great detail on yesterday's show that, Max Crosby angry or finding a reason to be motivated is even better, right? And alphas, that's what they do. And Max is no different. And it was refreshing to hear him talk and talk about, that chip on the shoulder, but at the same time, just going to work with the players that he has now, his running buddies at this stage of the game. And, he told the story. Quay Walker said it's going to be different. Raider Greg brought it up as well. It's going to be different. That's a great mindset. That's what they need to have. And there's a really good group of guys that he's playing with this year. So hopefully his defense and his team in general gets turned around quick, fast, and in a hurry. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Brandy Flores joins us coming up at the top of the hour. She's our teammate here at the Las Vegas Sports Network. And, of course, RaiderNation Radio 920. She was out at practice earlier today, but we do want to hear from you. Let's go ahead and hear from our guy, Bernard. Bernard, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, football is in the air, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, just real quick, the answer to your question is, football is the ultimate team sport, right? And of course, there's other, team sports, but no I in team, Q. All the best teams, that's their motto, and it's just a matter of getting all the players, to buy into it, and listening to the general, I think I told you this before, man. He's one of my favorite guests, man. I think he said he's been doing it for over close to 50 years or something like that, And all the when he refers to, oh yeah, I used to talk to Al Davis, I'd be like, man, what kind of conversations? I bet that would be fun as heck, you know what I mean? But to know, the leader and the owner, the general manager of the Raiders, had that kind of insight would be awesome. But if anybody that's been listening to your show, he already kind of told us, what Clint Kubiak's demeanor was going to be like. So I'm not surprised because he already told us, he's pretty much like his dad. He's all ball. You talk to him about ball, he lights up. Everything else, he's just going to kind of be, blase. So I'm not surprised by that. And anybody that's been listening to your show, probably not either. So we already got a real good insight to Kubiak. And so we just ready for the ball to get hiked, man, and you see these players running up and down the field. And one more thing, I kind of been wanting to ask you, what do you think the reason is? You hear JT had Bill Romanowski on earlier. We know he played for the Raiders, but he didn't really make his hay, with the Raiders. And I can say the same for Rod Woodson. Eric Allen, he had some really good years here, but I remember more for when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. But what draws so many players back to the Raiders, even if they didn't have maybe their best years here? It's they just ride or die with the Raiders, man. It's just awesome. It's just something. Even if they didn't, have as much success or go to the Super Bowl or win a bunch of playoff games, Rich Gannon, they just love the Raiders, man. And it seems like so many players want the Raiders to do good, and we've been in such a downward cycle for so long, but they never stop believing in the Raiders. And I'm saying that's the same thing that goes for the fans. And I'd be with my wife, and I'd be in Walmart. I see somebody on with a Raider hat on or a Raider jersey on, and it might not be the best jersey. I say, oh, nice jersey, nice shirt. My wife be like, what you doing? They got on a Raider jersey. So we always compliment the Raiders. We don't hide, man. 2-14. 3 and whatever, we don't hide. I see Raider gear all the time. So, but what you think the reason is for that, for these guys that didn't really make all day hay with the Raiders, and they just love it. James Jones, another one. He on the Raiders show. It's just it's awesome, man. So I just wonder what draws them to the Raiders, even though they didn't have some of their best years with the Raiders. So
yeah,
good work.
Okay, yeah. No, thanks for the call, Bernard. Definitely appreciate you. That's a good point that you bring up. I can tell you, and all these players always tell us that nobody treats their alumni like the Raiders. Mark Davis does such a great job of leaning into and appreciating the alumni. It doesn't matter who you played for, whether you played, a year, a game, right, just training camp, whatever it was, nobody treats their alumni like the Raiders. The way that they take care, and they have the alumni day, and they have the wellness that, take care of that, and they do all this other stuff, that doesn't happen at other spots. And the other thing about it is, remember, the Raiders at one point were great, right? A lot of these guys that we're talking about, the EAs, the Romanowskis, you name it, they all grew up as Raider fans too. They all grew up because they saw greatness when the Raiders were at the top of their game. And then, now they obviously aren't there, but they want them to get back to that time that they were at. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the history of the Raiders, a lot of them growing up, looking at some of the Raider players, like Cliff Branch was the guy that EA looked up to. There were so many different reasons why people really appreciated the Raiders. And, I mean, even when we found out Antonio Pierce, when he was the head coach, remember, he grew up as a Raider fan. And it's just, being there in L.A. And so there's so many different reasons. For one reason to the other, we all used to wear Raider colors and clothes, right? I mean, a lot of guys used to wear Raider gear just because they were hip-hop guys, right? I mean, there's so many different reasons. But the main one, as far as I'm concerned, is nobody treats their alumni like the silver and black, like the Raiders do. Brandy Flores, she joins us next, kicking off hour number 3. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
Team first approach is the number one thing that we're going to talk about. We talked about it all off season, but removing the word "I" from our verbiage as much as possible and thinking about the team, how we can make the team better, players, coaches, administrators, and just trying to keep the "I" out of the building as much as possible.
I just really like the character of the guys in the locker room. I think it's high-quality guys, high-quality people. It would seem that our personnel staff has really emphasized the caliber of the person in the locker room, and that's the sense I get with the guys I'm with, and just how on the details they are, how much football matters to them, the questions they ask. And that's been a real shot in the arm for me as an older player to kind of see a lot of young guys who are acting like veterans.
It's Unnecessary Roughness. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right. Here's your boy Q.
Clint Kubiak talking about removing the "I" from the verbiage. It's all about we. John Spytek, he reiterated that earlier today when he sat down with the morning tailgate. And then you hear Kirk Cousins talking about the good caliber people, the character, the young guys that are acting like veterans, guys that all are about ball and trying to go out there for the better good of the team and try to ultimately win games and get the culture turned around with the silver and black. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. We bring in Brandy Flores, part of the team here at the Las Vegas Sports Network. She was out there at the practice facility earlier today, early in the morning till late in the afternoon. And Brandy, thanks so much for your time. Do appreciate you. You were there when Vince was talking with GM John Spytek early this morning, kicking off the morning tailgate. I guess what was your biggest takeaway from what Spy had to say from your vantage point?
Well, I think to your point, it's removing the "I" and it is we. Like, we are the team. We are together, being on the same page. He brought up multiple times the connection and the communication that him, Clint Kubiak, and the rest of the coaching staff have with one another, just to make sure they're completely in sync with which guys should be on the roster, who they need, who they don't need. And that's kind of carried on into training camp. One thing that Vince asked that I thought was really interesting was he asked him, hey, so what does this look like for you year 2? Because it's a completely different scenario than he was last season. And I, of course, cannot speak to that because I was not here. However, going into this season, Spytek reiterated how strong the communication is with the coaching staff. And he says that him and Clint Kubiak, he's like, within these past 6 months, we've worked so much together. It feels like I known him for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And that's great. That's exactly what you want to hear. And I think with that strong communication between the head coach and the GM, you really do get the right, not just guys who can play out in the field, but the right guys you want in your locker room, on your coaching staff, so that everybody is on the same page under the same roof, which is very, very, very important. And as we know, teams with a lot of dysfunction, usually that stems from everybody not being on the same page or being maybe a little bit selfish. And so that is really good that it is being hammered in at every level on this Raiders organization that they are going to be together somehow, some way. Hopefully that'll equate to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there anything that you saw today in particular that stood out for you from day one of camp, from the action you saw on the field?
Well, a couple of things. I think that obviously with Fernando Mendoza, being with the second team, working with the second team, I thought that was interesting because up until now we've seen him working in with the third team, with AOC working ahead of him kind of. So I think Fernando Mendoza working with more higher caliber players than the third team, I guess, was interesting to see. I think that you can tell that he's still learning everything and making sure he has his feet under him and he's reading the defense as he can. Obviously, it's a lot different because there is no pads. However, that was interesting to see that you can just tell he's still learning a lot. And there is a lot that he has to learn, I will say, when it comes to just being comfortable. But as you know, that will come as camp continues to roll out.
How much is it helping that Kirk Cousins is there and they don't have to force Fernando out there? And Kirk seems like he's very comfortable and ready to lead this team for however long they need him.
I think this is the ideal scenario, and it was once the ideal scenario for any rookie quarterback up until, the last 10 years, maybe 8 years in the NFL. Rookie quarterbacks were not rushed onto the field. Think back to all the great quarterbacks like the Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady's. You could even go as early as back as Dak Prescott. He only got jumped in because he only got pushed into his role because of an injury, or else he was going to be backing up Tony Romo at the time, right? So there's a lot of back in the day, that was how it was, and it was essential for those quarterbacks to grow and be successful. I know people want to, and that what we have seen in the past, 8 years or so is a lot of quarterbacks being thrown into the fire a little too soon. I think case in point is Justin Fields. They were kind of putting a lot of pressure on him to turn that franchise around, and then look what happened. I think that even with Caleb Williams, they did the same thing with him after when they drafted him in Chicago. He did not have a great first year at all because it is a lot of pressure when you're a rookie. And as I just mentioned, Fernando Mendoza is still learning, but being able to sit back and take reps intentionally, not with that added pressure of, oh my God, I have to turn this whole franchise around today, this year. And training camp just started. You only have a very limited amount of time, and the offseason is so much shorter for rookies coming in because of everything they have to deal with, especially if you're drafted top 10 in the NFL with all the attention and media and everything that you get. So I think this is going to be extremely essential for Fernando Mendoza's growth because he can kind of take his time with it. And, of course, he wants to be out on the field. He's highly competitive. He talked about how much excitement he gets wanting to lead a team and to lead his players. And so I think maybe if he sits on the sideline to start the year, watching his teammates play ahead of him, it's going to want to drive him to be that much better. How can I beat out Kirk? How can I be better than him? What can I learn from him? And with Kirk Cousins making it very clear, and Clint Kubiak as well, that Kirk Cousins is here to play good football, he's not just going to roll over and give the job to Fernando Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza is going to have to earn it. And like I said, we saw him working in with the twos today. However, that doesn't mean really anything. We could see AOC taking reps tomorrow with the twos and Fernando Mendoza with the threes. And, I think it could all be mixed. I think from what I've seen from a lot of fans and a lot of people kind of overreacting as to where's Fernando Mendoza's growth or even the rest of the team and who's starting on the line and who isn't and who's out there and who's not. I think it's really early, and what's interesting about this coaching staff is they're not trying to rush anything. They're trying to see how each player can play in specific situations. And we don't know what that is because we don't know what their exact game plan is, right? With the offense, we have an idea of how they want things to be schemed out, but we don't know exactly. And so when we see these things out in training camp, I will say to Raider Nation, just beware. Maybe the last week or two of camp, and then we can really see, okay, Fernando Mendoza is working with the twos, he's the backup. Or Fernando Mendoza is playing far better than Kirk Cousins, he might start. So I think that it's really early to say all of that. But I did also want to say another play that has stood out to me is the secondary. The entire secondary, that young group, they played pretty well. I think it's also a little bit easier when there are no pads, as we mentioned. But the fact that they're right in lockstep with the receivers is great to see, especially considering how young this group is. And I think the safeties to me stood out today. But also Hezekiah Mathis, we saw him working in with the ones, and he was right in there. He looked like he belonged, with those ones teams. So I think that's super, super exciting to see.
It's a good first step. It really is. And I said the same thing about Masses. He was right in the wide receiver's hip pocket all practice long. So I thought that was really positive. Again, Brandy Flores is with us here. Raider Nation Radio 920. I was asked earlier kind of what was my overall feeling of practice and kind of what the theme was. And I said it felt like it was very focused. Like Clint Kubiak led a very focused practice. What did you think? Do you feel like that was kind of a good description of what we saw on day one?
Yeah, I would say so. I think you could tell everybody there's a lot of new players on this team, Q, as you and I know. A lot of new players. They're still all trying to make sure that they fit with one another and that they know what's going on. It's also a brand new coaching staff. The only real returning guy who's leading anything or in charge is the defensive coordinator, and Rob Leonard, and it's his first time as a defensive coordinator. So I think that everything really was focused. I mean, we talk about the excitement of the players, and you can kind of feel that during the stretching period, how they're getting juiced up to practice and all that stuff. But for the most part, when we were watching them out in the field, you heard the coaches getting on them more. You heard the energy more from the coaching staff on getting the players in place. No, don't do that. Do this. Make sure it's done this way. Don't do that. And they were very, very vocal. There were a few players who were vocal as well. I'm not going to sit here and say that the players were completely, mums the word or anything like that. However, I do think it was more of a lot of teaching and it was a big learning period. But I think as we move on along in training camp, it's going to start to ramp things up. But which I think is interesting, kind of we're now understanding how Clint Kubiak's, I guess, how he's going to be leading his team, first-time head coach. But as we know, his father, Gary Kubiak, led the Broncos and was a coach for years in this league, especially as a leadership role, to be extremely focused on everything and to be almost meticulous, attention to detail. And I love that. I mean, like I said, I did not see what was going on last year or even 5 years ago with the Raiders, but I do have seen enough NFL practices and training camps to know what a well-run team looks like and a team where you can kind of tell, maybe they might struggle. They don't look locked in. Nothing seems focused. It looks a little clicky. Like you could sense that. You could kind of get a sense of that. I do not feel that at all whatsoever with the Raiders. Everything is extremely to the letter for the most part.
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels so far. Again, early, day one of practice, but it definitely feels very focused from a coaching staff point of view. You had an opportunity. You asked Max when we talked to him after practice about him being out there day one and how important that was, especially everything that he's gone through this offseason from surgery and others. What did you think of his response and just his overall demeanor being out there with his guys?
Well, we'll start with how he was on the field. He was just almost twitching, excited, like he wanted to go harder because you could tell that's how excited he was to be on the field. I think it was Mike Washington who ran past him, and Max was right there. Like if they had pads on, he was going to get taken out if it was a game situation. And Max, as he walked by him, he just kind of hit him once, and then he punched him again, and he punched him again, very playfully. But he could just tell that aggression, he just wanted to let it out. In a positive way because, he's excited to be back on the field. And it's funny, when I did ask him that question, yes, I kind of alluded to everything he's been through, but I was more so talking about him coming back from injury because, yes, he kind of went through a lot mentally because of the trade, no trade, here he is, now he's not, all that happened. But I think especially for an athlete, especially one of Max's caliber, there is a lot more pressure for him this season, I think internally, because he wants to prove that, not to, measure what he's worth or not, but at one point we were sitting here that Max was worth 2 first-round picks, and then it got dropped, and now he's not even worth a trade. And I'm sure that's how he feels because he did come off an injury. So it's not, on top of coming back from an injury, making sure that his body's right and making sure he can still do the things that he could do before and even go further in his own skill set. But it's also that pressure because he is playing with a chip on his shoulder. He mentioned that when a similar question was asked later in the press conference about that entire situation. And so you could, you could tell by his response to my question, because I was referring to more so coming off of an injury, was that you could tell it's definitely a chip on his shoulder. And I think that it's not a negative thing. I think it's definitely fueling him in a different way. Not that he needed extra fuel, but this is great for the Raiders that Max has a little something extra and that he is on this team.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I was pretty fired up when you start hearing rumors that he's mad, he's angry, he's upset, and I'm like, that's a good thing for the Raiders. And then just to hear his demeanor, him being excited to be out there, he reported with the rookies. He said he feels like a rookie again, but to say that he loves when people doubt him and he loves to go be able to prove people wrong, I think that's only going to help benefit that Raiders defense. Well, are you ready for day 2 coming up tomorrow? Are you ready?
I am absolutely ready. And you know what, Q, I got to say this. First of all, everybody, be sure and make sure you're following us on RaiderNation Radio 920 on Instagram, X, and YouTube. We have a YouTube page this year, so all of our content's going to be uploaded on there. You can hear all the shows after they've aired as well, including our full sit-down, the Morning Tailgate full sit-down with GM John Spytek. But I was making my video, right? And every time I record Q, every day, he sends it to me every single day when he teases the show. He says, RaiderNation, what's happening? This is because we start practices so early, so I'm up at 5 in the morning. I start my video, Raider Nation, what's happening? So I just want to let you know that I did copy you unintentionally because I'm looking back at the videos. I'm like, wait a second.
It
so
happens.
I'm ready for day 2, and I'm going to come up with a different intro.
All right, hey, whatever works. As long as we keep on pumping out that content, you're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, man, everything that everyone's being able to see from videos to, the YouTube page, the Instagram page, everything that you're doing is been incredible. So keep up the good work. And if you got to steal a line or two from me, that's okay. I'll steal a line or two from someone else. Don't worry.
as long as it works.
Yes, it will work. It will work. And we'll see you early in the morning tomorrow morning.
All right, thanks, Q. See you tomorrow.
All right.
Bye, Ari.
See you. Appreciate you. Brandy Flores right there has been doing a fantastic job on Twitter at _Brandy Flores. And, of course, like she said, the YouTube page, IG, Twitter, all that. She's got it covered. And again, if you missed the John Spytek interview and you want to go check it out, make sure you check out our YouTube page for sure. We do want to continue to hear from you at 702-365-9200. Show is just flying by. Man, I'm trying to tell you. I mean, this is how it's going to be throughout the course of training camp. We're just going to boom, 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 go. Then we're going to be talking about games, and then we're going to talk about a 53-man roster. Then, boom, it'll be into the regular season. Like, it's going to go so quick, fast, in a hurry. We have officially made it to football season. So we do want to hear from you again, 702-365-9200. How much do you believe this team will benefit from buying into the we and not the I? Let's go out to the phone lines, talk to a very patient old-ass Raider. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Q, thank you for taking my call, man. I didn't drop your call. I'm traveling. I done drove 9 hours through Texas, man. I'm coming from Marshall, Texas, driving back to Colorado Springs, and you can call me sore-ass Raider, man. I'm just sore as that.
I know that's right.
Man, this is a stretch. But no, I was listening, and what I thought about it, I think they don't benefit because of the team aspect. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. I think about Kubiak. I was listening. I can't remember what I was listening to. A bunch of content I listened to on the Raiders app. Maybe it was your show. I don't know. I can't remember. But one of the things he said when he was talking about becoming a coach, he said that I think he was talking to his father, and his father said, as long as you don't forget why you're doing it. And the reason why you're doing it is to help these players become better. So you're trying to help the players become better. And not about winning games. It's about helping the players become better. All right? That's one aspect of it. With that said, and then I think that because he's trying to help the players come better, one of the things he said, was it this yesterday? When he's talking about he's trying to see what the players could do best. And, not how
oh man, did he drop? Oh man, he's on. Oh, we got him back. There he is. I got you.
Okay. One of the things that I think it was yesterday, you was talking about how they play together. Not that you might be the best athlete, but how you play with the other 5.
Yeah.
So he's talking about the team again. Mendoza talked about being a servant leader and how he can gain how he can help the players be better, and how they can start trusting him that he knows the playbook and he knows and not put him in harm's way. I think it was you. You was talking about one of the passes that I can't think of the quarterback's name. I think the guy Garoppolo or whatever it was. He threw a pass and almost got somebody's head taken off. You don't put. You're looking to help a player become great and not to put him in harm's way. So I think, and with that said, then look at Max. He has the camp. What's it called?
The Sack Summit. Yep.
Sack Summit. What is that? That's just helping people. So you're talking about helping people become better at their craft. So with that said, I think every they're looking for players that's going to work well together. That's why I think that Stephon Diggs will not come to the Raiders, because he's more about him than about what's good for the team. And the other thing where they were talking about we talked about it the other day, was talking about no block, no rock.
Yeah.
Again, you got it's about the team, man. It's not about, if you're not doing the right thing for the team, you're not going to be on that team very long. That's all I got to go say. Thank you for accepting my call. And I'm just going to end it with this, with Go Raiders.
There he goes. There he goes. Old ass Raider, or as he says, sore ass Raider, on that long drive right there. And yeah, man, look, there's no way that you could drive in Texas and not have a long drive. Like, it don't matter. It seems like where you're going in Texas, everything seems like it's far away. And all I can think about is earlier this month, back in 2021, where I made the drive from Texas here, 18 hours. And then got on a plane, got on that bird, flew back to Dallas. The wife picked me up. We packed up that U-Haul and drove another 18 hours with her car on the back of the U-Haul. That was not a good 36-hour drive, let me tell you. That was not the most entertaining, multiple trips that I made, but it is what it is. And it felt like out of the 18-hour drive, it felt like 13 or 14 hours was just getting out of Texas. I mean, man, once you got out of Texas, you're like, okay, I'm almost there. But that damn state is so big, man. It's hard to get up out of there. So I can imagine if you are driving, you're in that big old truck, man. You got you a ride. There's no doubt about that. Really good call, man. Definitely appreciate that. Got a couple of texts here that I'd like to get to real quick. How about this one from Kanapali Raider? He said, for all the grief I've given Mark for his head coach hires and their quarterback choices in recent years, I have to tip my hat on how he's carried on his father's legacy for truly caring about his players and living once a Raider, always a Raider, like no other organization in professional football. Again, that goes back to what Bernard was asking. Why do all these players that might not even have their most success in their career always lean into the Raiders and always seem like that they're, rocking the silver and black and there, and it goes back to the way that the organization treats the players. It really does. And I didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea that other teams didn't treat their alumni like that. But the way that I've become friends with guys like Kirk Morrison, guys like Lincoln Kennedy, guys like Eric Allen, guys like Mike Haynes, guys that I've been blessed, and I trust and believe, Ryan Hogue, right? I've been so blessed to be able to talk to these guys that have been at multiple organizations, and for all of them to tell me, Q, it ain't like this everywhere else. Insert this team. They don't treat their alumni like this. They don't treat their that's real. And to see the different events, and so happy when the third preseason game comes up, and that's the alumni day, right? That's the 49ers, August 27th at Allegiant Stadium, and you look down, Donald Penn, he's another guy that tells us about how great the way that the alumni are treated. Richie Incognito, he's another one that has told us so much how the organization treats the alumni. I mean, it's next level. It really is. And I can only speak for the ones that I've talked to directly about it. Right? Tim Brown, Marcus Allen, right? They have the health awareness and mental health retreat that they have, and they've had that multiple years, and I've had an opportunity to just be a fly on the wall and do my show from there and just see all the alumni roll through and be able to take care of themselves and receive whatever kind of treatment that they need. I mean, when Mark Davis says, once a Raider, always a Raider, there is not a more truthful statement that you can hear than that from the owner of the Silver and Black. And so that, to me, is the reason why all these different players, regardless of where they had a ton of success at, they always gravitate back to the Raiders because of the way that they're treated by the organization. And like I said before, also when the Raiders were certified badasses, a lot of them were just coming up. And, even if their families weren't fans of the Raiders, they looked over and was like, man, who are those guys? Who are those guys with that swagger? Who are those guys that, are going out there and doing incredible things? Who are those guys that – and look at Marcus Allen, look at Tim Brown, look at Cliff Branch, and you insert whatever great player rep that Raider jersey. That's why a lot of these other players, man, I always wanted to be a Raider. I can't tell you how many times I've heard players sign on as free agents with the Raiders. It was like, no, I've literally always – thought about being a Raider. And I will be the first to admit that there's some that I'm sure it's just lip service, but there's others that you could tell it's absolutely genuine. And you can see that, from their families and, I can most recently say even when, Jacoby Myers was a member of the Raiders, and I developed a really good relationship with his pops. And, I could tell how much he was happy that his son was a Raider and how much Jacoby enjoyed being a Raider. Obviously, he got traded to the Jaguars, but, I used to have those conversations with Jacoby's pops right there at the Torch in Allegiant Stadium, and it's just different. The way that the Raiders do it and the way that they cut for their guys and represent for their guys, it's the next level. So hopefully that answered the question, and thanks for the text. Do appreciate it. Keep that feedback coming, 702-365-9200. How much do you believe this team will benefit from buying into the we and not I? We'll get to that. We'll hear from you. Plus, we've got something else that we got to flush. We got another performance that we've got to flush, and this time it's not even really about a game. That's next here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
Certainly not a pure backed-up quarterback situation as Lagway goes to work. Interception! Tennessee's right back in the red zone. Carter, watch him sink underneath that sail route. This is textbook, folks. It doesn't look any prettier than this.
It's time to flush it on Unnecessary Roughness. Brought to you by Moonlight Plumbing.
We will flush it. We got somewhat of a performance or something that may be like a performance that we've got to flush in a hot minute. I do want to throw the question out there that we threw here on Unnecessary Roughness, RaiderNation Radio 920. How much do you believe this team, talking about the Raiders, will benefit from buying into the we and not I mantra that Clint Kubiak and John Spytek and company are talking about and preaching with the players as day one of training camp is officially in the books? 702-365-9200. We'll continue to hear from you in a hot minute, but as you heard, we do have to flush it. It is brought to you by Moonlight Plumbing. We do appreciate them. MoonlightPlumbing.Vegas. They do a fantastic job from sun up to moonlight. Affordable, dependable plumbing professionals serving Vegas since 2016, and they mean business. You can give them a call. Go ahead and put the number in your contact, 702-355-3938. That's 702-355-3938. Small but mighty, veteran-owned and operated company, handles jobs big and small, leaky faucets, water heaters, and commercial installs, and more. Again, moonlightplumbing.Vegas. You can check them out online. But I gotta take it to college football. As you heard right there, Arian Carter highlight from Tennessee. And I'm not taking it to Tennessee. I'm not taking it to college football, not a team. This one's actually going to the NCAA. Check this out. The NCAA has suspended Tennessee linebacker Arian Carter for the first 2 games of the season for accepting $427 flight from an agent after he declared for the NFL draft. He's a senior from Tennessee. He played through a foot injury late in 2025, and after declaring for the draft, he aggravated the injury and needed surgery, and ultimately decided to return to Tennessee for another season. So now he's suspended by the NCAA because he accepted a $427 flight from an agent. So in a statement, Volunteers head coach Josh Heupel said Carter disengaged from the agent and repaid him for the flight in January. A Tennessee source told ESPN that the NCAA originally suspended Carter 3 games, but the Volunteers appealed the penalty, which was reduced to 2 games. Carter will miss the Volunteers opener against FCS program Furman at home on September 5th and a September 12th road game at Georgia Tech. He'll be eligible to return for a September 19th game against Kennesaw State, which is fine, right? I mean, I'm sure that they're going to be okay, but we got players in college athletics, not just football, in athletics that are making millions. Right? NIL is a thing. All these guys' pockets got some money in it. It's funny, Ryan Hogue actually brought this up to me today at the facility. He said, Q, a college player just got suspended for accepting a $427 flight. And I thought he was kidding. I was like, come on, man. There is no world where that is even a possibility at this stage of the game, where everybody's getting paid. Everyone's getting paid in a major way, and you're worried about a $427 flight that a guy who declared for the NFL took from an agent but then decided he was going to go back to school, so he repaid him? Like, you're telling me that there's no room to say, hey, you know what, no harm, no foul? Like, the NCAA has no power. They have no power whatsoever. Everything that's like a big issue, they lose, right? They don't have any kind of say-so when it comes to just about any subject that is a big deal. right? Anytime that they try to bring down a penalty on someone or whatever the case may be, what happens? That player takes them to court and the NCAA loses. How many times have we seen that? So now you want to flex your muscles? Like you want to go – it's like when me and my homeboy used to go to Court B, and we were really good on Court B. But you get us on Court A, and we were just all right, right? I wasn't the only one, right? We all used to do that. We used to go to Court B. It's like, oh, man, we're jumping out the gym. We're high flying, man. We're the dudes. All right, let's go do that on Court A. All right, well, the game's a little bit different on Court A, right? But, I mean, in all seriousness, like $427 flight that he repaid, you're worried about that. Now, again, Tennessee is going to be fine in those two games. It's unfortunate for the young man that he has to be suspended. His name has to be involved in this at all. But this is what it is, right? This is why the NCAA, in my opinion, is a joke a lot of times. And this is why you hear, conferences like the SEC say, we can separate from the NCAA. We don't need them, which is wild to think that. But that's what you hear. That's what the Big Ten thinks. We don't need the NCAA. For what? We got more power than they do. So Josh Heupel goes on to say in a statement on social media, and Josh Heupel, again, the Tennessee head coach, Carter represents everything that is right about college athletics, dedicating all 4 years of his career to the University of Tennessee. High character, loyalty, leadership within our program, and unmatched. We disagree with the NCAA's ruling on punishing Arian with the multi-game suspension this fall. He made the right decision for his future health and well-being. He'll proudly graduate from Tennessee in public health with Dean's List honors in August. Our team stands behind AC and his family. We can't wait to be on the field with him during training camp next week. So, I mean, the young man's done everything the right way. The young man's not trying to get over on anyone. And if he's trying to get over, he ain't doing it well if it's only a $427 flight that he had to pay back. So the NCAA, I know they pick and choose their moments when they've got to flex their muscles. It's like, this is going to sound bad, but it's like when you see that like when you watch the news, or maybe it's just me. I wake up every morning, I watch the news for a good 45 minutes and realize how screwed up everything is, right? And realize how happy I am that I work in sports and not, do what others have to do is report like news that is affecting the world on the daily. But then it's like all this bad will happen, and then you'll see like, oh, hey, that person got busted for this. And it's like, oh, okay, so there was one, there was one capture, or there was one solve the mystery, and everything else got by. That's like the NCAA to me. Like they bring down the suspension on this, but everything else just flies right on by. Hey, but you know what? We got Carter, that damn $427 flight. That's not going to fly with us, sir. You can't do that. I don't care if you did repay it. Like, what are we doing? Are we serious? So one time, man, flush the NCAA one more time for that ridiculous ruling. And just a shout-out to my man Arian Carter. Had 76 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and a fumble recovery last season. And, again, the man is graduating in August. Shout-out to him. And hopefully he's 100% healthy, so when the season gets wrapped up, he could take his flight for $427 or whatever from the agent and go take his talents to the NFL. That flushing of the NCAA was brought to you by Moonlight Plumbing. Again, 702-355-3938. Since 2016, Moonlight Plumbing has delivered exceptional service across the Las Vegas Valley. Small but mighty, veteran-owned and operated company handles jobs big and small, from leaky faucets and water heaters to commercial installs, including grease interceptors. Military and first responder discounts are available because of all things that can be flushed down the drain. And as you can tell, all things can be flushed down the drain around here. Time and money shouldn't be two of them. Visit moonlightplumbing.vegas. That's moonlightplumbing.vegas.
Flush It is brought to you by Moonlight Plumbing. Affordable, dependable plumbing professionals serving Las Vegas since 2016. We mean business.
Shout out to my man Burke, who's a big fan of my Flush It segment. So thank you, Burke. Hey, look, everything's not for everybody. That's fine. It's not meant to be funny. It's meant to be kind of embarrassing on whoever gets flushed. So sorry that you're not a fan, but these things happen, right? Everything's not for everybody, but I do appreciate you taking the time to give us some positive feedback on the text line at 702-365-9200. Mark said, the I and the me takes away from the we, which you need to start, build a successful long-term team. That's Mark in Jersey. I can appreciate that. Gustavo said, hey, Q, I feel like the message of we versus I helps develop depth, Backup players will stay engaged because they feel that they're contributing to the team's success, even if they aren't starting. The Raiders have lacked depth every single season since I could remember, and making everyone accountable, especially backup players, raises the performance of the whole team. Let's see. Zane hit us with individualism is as cancerous as our collective delusion regarding ties. Life ends in a tie for everybody. There are no individual achievements. The most individual record I could think of is the single mile. I guarantee you the individual holding that record had a whole team supporting that record attempt. Team, tribe equals the only priority for folk worth a damn. That was a very detailed text. That was a very detailed text from my guy Zane, but he dug deep into the trenches right there. I can appreciate that. That's cool. Our guy Jason said, it's never me, it's we. That mentality would get us ready for the Super Bowl in Vegas coming in 2029. That's part when she said, listen to Raider Nation Radio 920. He was giving Brandy a shout-out as well. And also when she spoke about Max. He said she is fire. I'll steal a line or two, too. Quick, fast, and hurry. I'll cover it like a glove. There you go. Those are a couple of cute favorites at the time. So there you go. Let's see. What else did we get? Brent said, been an everyday listener the last 4 years on Locked On Raiders, and now I got my radio app. I'm going to be tuning in every day. Q, thanks to you and Ari for all the coverage as always. Let's go Raiders. Hey, man, we just are happy that you're along for the ride, right? If we can entertain in any form for a couple minutes a day, whatever you give us, we could appreciate that, right? I mean, again, I don't take myself too seriously. As I mentioned, I watch the news every day. Those guys have to take themselves serious. They're talking about real life, whatever. The Raiders could win 14 games this year, and that would be fantastic, and we'd all have great shows, and we'd have a lot of fun, and we'd celebrate, but it's not life or death. They win 3 games like they did last year. God willing, we'll all wake up the next day and we'll continue on with life. There's real deal stuff going on in this world that are way more serious, that people need to take themselves way more serious about. So if I have fun in a segment that is sponsored by Moonlight Plumbing and we just flush bad performances and you're not a fan, that's okay, right? I'm not a fan of a lot of things. I'm not a fan of a lot of the bad ish that I wish I could flush out of the world. Right, I'm just talking about some sports. So, I mean, you can get bent out of shape, you can get upset about it, but, it is what it is. So, like I said, if you listen for 2 minutes, 22 minutes, or you give us 3 hours, we don't mind. It's all good, and criticism is never going to hurt my feelings because, again, I don't take myself that serious. It's like we're sitting around the sports bar, we're having a conversation. I just happen to talk to a lot of people at the same time. And I encourage you to talk with us back, right? Never the guy that's going to cut you off and disrespect you if you disrespect me, or not disrespect me, but if you disagree with me, it's fine. It's cool. It's your prerogative. There's other shows that might take themselves a little bit more seriously, but this ain't the one. So there, it is what it is. Let's see. What else do we get? Hold on. Second page. This is a good one from Hot Sauce Raider. I saw it earlier. I wanted to make sure I got to. Q, I'm sick and tired of people saying Coach Kubiak is a man of few words. I wouldn't care if he said 3 words the whole entire season. It's just as long as we get results we need. W's, not sound bites. Go Raiders. No, that's real. But the thing is, it's not that he's a man of few words. He just is really focused in on football. And he's focused in on family. And he's focused in, he has certain things, as John McClain told us well before he ever got hired, that there were certain things that he was going to focus in on, just like his father. He wasn't going to stand at the podium and be a rah-rah guy. He was going to give you what you need, give you the time that you need, and he was going to, give you the answer and respond. And that's what he does. And I'm fine with that, right? There's so many different ways of doing it. And like I said earlier when my man was talking about what he didn't like, everything's not for everybody, right? Certain coaches, some guys will gravitate to a certain coach, Some people were super fired up about AP. Certain people are super fired up about Pete Carroll. Some are fired up about, Clint Kubiak. I mean, it's different strokes for different folks. It's just that simple, right? But it doesn't mean that there's only one way to get it done. And I personally believe that the way that Clint Kubiak, John Spytek, Andrew Janocko, Robbie Leonard, everyone, the way that they're approaching things, I think that they're going to get it done correctly. And I think that the patience that the Raiders are going to show is really going to help them get it done correctly. The Raiders haven't shown a lot of patience when it comes to trying to get things turned around with this organization. Now that they're willing to have the patience, and that goes with, the development of the quarterback, the development of the head coach, the defensive coordinator, all these guys moving forward, I think that can only help. The more patience that you have, the better. And I do think you're going to see the fruits of the labor come through sooner rather than later. So really good text, Hot Sauce. I appreciate you and appreciate everyone who chimed in, good, bad, or indifferent, throughout the course of the show. We'll be back tomorrow here on RaiderNation Radio 920.